Chapter 1344. Young Master, I'm not dead? In Emolingwei's lab, Song Xiaoxi sat on a stool and slowly regained consciousness. He looked at Li Zixuan and the rest and asked in confusion. Li Zixuan pursed his lips. Although he was trying to stifle a laugh in his heart, he said in a bad mood, "Die? What die? Priest's son, Professor Qin, and Professor Wang are all famous doctors. Do you think it's that easy for you to die?" Song Xiaoxi was enlightened. He quickly stood up and saluted Priest's son and the rest. "Thank you, Priest's son, Professor Qin, and Professor Wang for saving my life. This kid really thought that he had just walked through the gates of hell." Sun Simiao was a decent person. He was not like Li Zixuan, who had a bad heart. He waved his hand and laughed. "You were just shocked and fainted. It's not a big deal. I didn't save you. You don't have to thank me." Song Xiaoxi was stunned. Wasn't he on the verge of death, because he drank cold water and was invaded by parasites? Why did Sun Simiao say that he was just shocked? Wouldn't that be too embarrassing? At the thought of this, Song Xiaoxi's face turned as red as a monkey's butt. Young Master, Faubert should need help. I'll go over now." Song Xiaoxi lowered his head and said to Li Zixuan. Then, he quickly ran away. Hey! Stop right there, Xiaoxi." Emolingwei quickly stopped Song Xiaoxi. She smiled and asked, "Xiaoxi, what happened to you just now? Why did you faint?" Song Xiaoxi turned around and scratched his head awkwardly. "No. Nothing, Professor Mo. Hee. Nothing? If it's really nothing, why would a man like you faint? Tell me." Emolingwei said in disbelief. Well, Song Xiaoxi was at a loss for words. He did not know where to begin. Who had not spoken all this while, opened his mouth at this moment. "Sister Wei don't make things difficult for Xiaoxi anymore. I reckon that he should have been frightened by young master's words just now?" Song Xiaoxi nodded and said, Yes. Young master said that there are parasites in the river that can kill people. When Xiaoxi brought young master some water, he was thirsty and drank a bowl. So I felt a little pain in my stomach just now. When I thought of what young master said, I thought I was going to die." Kakik. When Lan heard this, she was so happy that she couldn't stop giggling. "Xiaoxi, my brother must have lied to you just now. Look at how scared you are. Lan also drank the water from the river when she was young. Wasn't she still fine?" Although the little girl felt that the little bugs in the water were disgusting, she didn't think that drinking unboiled water would kill people. There were many people who drank unboiled water in this world. It had to be said that although Lan was young, her logical thinking ability was not weak at all. When Song Xiaoxi heard this, he said with a face full of surprise, "Young master, is what Miss Lan said true? You were lying to us just now?" Li Zixuan shook his head and said with a serious face, "Who said I was joking? There are parasites in the river that can really kill people. From what I know, some linear parasites, once they enter the human body, will reproduce in large numbers. Other than the human bones, they can't enter the brain, eyes, heart, liver, and so on. They can enter everything. Do you think it will be fatal?" When these words came out, everyone was shocked. Lan little face was pale with fright. She said with tears in her eyes, "Brother? Then did the water that Lan drank in the past have those parasites? Lan doesn't want my head to be full of bugs." Li Zixuan couldn't help but rub Lan's little head and comforted her softly. "Lan don't cry. How can you encounter those parasites so easily? As long as Lan doesn't drink unboiled water in the future, nothing will happen." Lan won't drink unboiled water in the future. Lan heard and hurriedly promised. Actually, ever since the cholera in Chang'an City last year, everyone in the Li family had stopped drinking unboiled water. But after today's incident, Lan probably wouldn't dare to touch unboiled water in the future. This was more effective than repeated warnings. Young master, Xiaoxi also won't dare to drink unboiled water in the future. Song Xiaoxi also promised with a face full of fear. Li Zishuan nodded satisfactorily. Sun Simiao looked at him and asked, Xiaoxian, you said that other than parasites, there are also bacteria in the water. What are bacteria? Are they harmful to the human body? What he had seen and heard today had brought great shock to Sun Simiao, a doctor who had been practicing medicine all his life. It could be said that it was an eye-opener for him. He felt that the door to a new world was slowly opening up to him. Sun Simiao had studied medicine, pathology and pharmacology his whole life. But from Li Zishuan's words, he could discover some new knowledge. Inside the room, Dr. Qin, Dr. Wang, and Hu Jingjing all looked at Li Zishuan at that moment. Li Zishuan thought for a moment and said, From what I know, there are many types of bacteria. On one hand, bacteria are the source of many diseases, including tuberculosis, gonorrhea, anthrax, plague, trachoma, and other diseases. They are all caused by bacteria. On the other hand, there are also situations where we use bacteria. For example, when making wine, we use distiller's yeast. There are some bacteria that are beneficial to the human body. These bacteria can convert the sugar in the ingredients into alcohol. The more bacteria there are in distiller's yeast, the fuller the taste of the wine. Dr. Wang stroked his beard and said in amazement, This is really a big world. There are all kinds of strange things. I've lived my whole life and thought that I'm knowledgeable. But today, I realize that I'm just a frog at the bottom of a well. But I'm a little curious. How did Yamacho know about these things? Ahem. Li Zishuan blushed and said hurriedly, Well, this is what my master told me in the past. As for the truth, we'll have to wait for the students of Yanhuang College to verify it one by one. Speaking of which, isn't the medical school going to be established soon? Let's leave these questions to the future medical students. Master, you wouldn't mind having another title as a microbiologist, right? Li Zishuan sighed in his heart. Dr. Wang didn't doubt him. He cupped his hands and said, Don't worry, Mountain Elder. In the future, the medical students will definitely verify everything that Mountain Elder said. At this time, Sun Simiao closed his eyes, as if he was sleepwalking, and slowly walked out of the room without saying a word. Hey, priest's son, where are you going? Li Zishuan felt that something was wrong and quickly chased after him. Master! Young master! Hu Jingjing screamed and also chased after him. Everyone in the room looked at each other. Dr. Qin could not help but ask, What's wrong with Dr. Sun? Dr. Wang thought for a moment and said, I think Dr. Sun must have been inspired by Mountain Head's germ theory and wanted to use it to verify it with the medical theories we learned from medical books in the past. I think Dr. Sun's medical skills will have another breakthrough soon. Sun Simiao had hit the nail on the head. Although Li Zishuan's theory of bacterial pathogenesis was contrary to traditional Chinese medicine's theory of evil energy entering the body and harming people, Sun Simiao felt that the two seemed to have something in common. They could complement each other and corroborate each other. Now, Sun Simiao's mind had entered a state of war. He didn't even notice that Li Zishuan and Hu were calling out to him. That's enough. Don't shout anymore. Li Zishuan shouted twice and found that Sun Simiao did not move. He guessed that Sun Simiao might have entered a magical state similar to a martial artist's epiphany, so he stopped Hu Jingjing and said, Priest's son should be thinking about his medical theory now. Let's not disturb him. Let's quietly help him walk for a while. Just don't let him trip on a stone. Okay, young master. Hu Jingjing responded. She grabbed Sun Simiao's right arm and began to carefully help Sun Simiao walk forward. Young master, I guess it must be the germ theory you just talked about that made my master doubt his medical skills. That's why he's like this now. I've never seen my master frown like this before, Hu Jingjing said after walking for a while. Li Zishuan heard this and nodded thoughtfully. He said, It's my fault. I shouldn't have told your master these things that haven't been verified yet. Your master's medical skills are unparalleled in the world. If he doubts his medical skills because of a few words from me, then I'm really a sinner." Hu Jingjing hurriedly said, "Young master, don't say that. I didn't have any intention of blaming you just now. Moreover, I believe that what young master said is definitely true. Actually, outsiders say that my master's medical skills are unparalleled in the world. But in private, my master often laments that his medical skills are still shallow and that he still needs to improve. But he has traveled all over the world and still can't find a way to improve his medical skills. Master used to teach me that there are 6 qi in a person's body. They are wind, cold, heat, humidity, dryness and fire. There were 2 sides to the 6 qis. One side was beneficial to the human body. As for the other side, if the 6 qis became too restless and went beyond what we could bear, then it would become the 6 obscenities, also known as the 6 great evil qis, which would cause harm and illness. For example, tuberculosis. According to the medical books, tuberculosis is caused by heat entering the body, causing the body's vital energy to be damaged. But young master, you just said that tuberculosis is caused by a bacterial infection. What you just said is completely different from what I know about medicine, pathology, and pharmacology. But my master is not an ordinary person. Who knows, he might be able to comprehend something from it. Who knows? Li Zishuan was silent. In his previous life, the Western theory of bacteria and viruses went against the theory of evil qi causing illness and the theory of yin, yang, and 5 elements in Chinese medicine. Many people used the fact that Chinese medicine did not understand bacteria and viruses to attack Chinese medicine. But was Chinese medicine really that bad after 5,000 years? Of course not. At the very least, from the perspective of Li Zishuan, who had personally transmigrated to the Tang Dynasty, Chinese medicine wasn't just for show. Famous doctors like Sun Simiao, Dr. Qin, and Dr. Wang would definitely be able to kill all the medical experts in the modern era. But could it be said that Western medicine was inferior to Chinese medicine and had no redeeming qualities? Of course not. Western medicine was more direct than Chinese medicine. If a virus caused a disease in the human body, then it would be killed directly. Therefore, Western medicine usually took effect faster than Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine placed more importance on the management of the internal environment. Cleaning up phlegm, sludge, moisture, heat, and toxins meant cleaning up the environment where all kinds of harmful parasitic bacteria grew. Just like removing garbage, all kinds of pests and diseases would be greatly reduced. Therefore, it was more important to treat a chaotic situation when it was not chaotic. To replace the sewage, it was more important to take care of dredging the river. The origin of life was symbiotic with the internal and external environment. Chinese medicine's concept of the unity of man and nature and the human body as a whole would always be the navigation mark of medicine. The reason why Li Zishuan proposed the theory of bacteria and viruses was that he hoped that with Sun Simiao's superb talent in medical skills, he could find a new way to combine Chinese and Western medicine. Oh no, there was no Western medicine now, so it should be said that he had found a new way to evolve Chinese medicine. Chapter 1345. So that's how it is. Ah, I finally understand. Sun Simiao's meditative state was very strange. It was different from a martial artist's meditative state. When Sun Simiao was meditating, he actually liked to close his eyes and walk leisurely. Li Zishuan and Hu Jing supported the old Taoist all the way out of the workshop. When they reached the foot of the cloud mountain, Sun Simiao finally recovered from his meditation and laughed out loud. In Li Zishuan and Hu Jingjing's impression, Sun Simiao had always presented himself as an otherworldly expert in front of the world. It was the first time they had seen him lose his composure and laugh out loud like today. It seems that Taoist Sun's meditation must have been very fruitful. Li Zixuan sincerely felt happy for Sun Simiao. Sun Simiao heard him and looked around. He couldn't help but be shocked and said, "This, Xiao Xian. Shouldn't I be in the workshop? Why am I here? Oh, it seems that my old habits are acting up again." After saying that, Sun Simiao suddenly realized something and couldn't help but pat his forehead and sigh. Li Zixuan heard him and thought, well, this isn't the first time old Sun has closed his eyes and walked leisurely like this. He couldn't help but be curious and asked, "Taoist Sun, from what you said, it seems that you've been in this situation before?" Sun Simiao nodded with a blush and said, "Ah, that was when I lived in seclusion in Taibai Mountain and studied medicine. In those years, I would often stay up all night thinking about a sentence in a medical book. I also often thought about some diseases. But now, when I open my eyes, I find that I don't know where I am. Although I lived a hard life in those years, it was the time when my medical skills improved the fastest." Li Zixuan smiled and said, "Taoist Sun, you've been thinking hard for a long time today. It seems that your medical skills have improved again." Sun Simiao smiled and said, "It's all thanks to you, Xiao Xian. Your theory about bacteria causing diseases reminded me of the relevant records in the Neijing. Back then, the Yellow Emperor wrote in the Neijing, 'The intestines and stomach are the market. There is nothing that they can't accept and contain.' Also, he ate too much, which hurt his stomach and intestines. If the husband is not careful with his food and drink, he will be injured in the morning and injured in the evening. His injuries will accumulate, and after accumulating for a long time, he will become hot. Hot tears will form, and all kinds of strange insects will be born from the energy of the 5 elements. Symptoms such as coughing, fatigue, chafing, venomous venom, fox confusion, typhoid fever, etc., are all signs of parasite. Doctors are apt to make all kinds of deductions and treatments. After accumulating for a long time, it became hot, wet, and hot tears formed, and all kinds of strange insects were born from the qi of the 5 elements. Aren't the strange bugs here similar to the disease-causing bacteria that you've mentioned? Just now I was wondering if the Yellow Emperor had already discovered this kind of bacteria that could make people sick, but at that time there was no microscope like the one we used just now, so he called it a strange worm to explain the relevant pathology. Since ancient times, when doctors treat patients, they mostly adjust the yin, yang, and 5 elements qi in the patient's body. This Taoist guesses that once the 5 elements qi in the human body is balanced, the bacteria in the body will not be able to survive. On the contrary, when the 5 elements qi is in chaos, the bacteria of various attributes will multiply and destroy the human body's functions, causing the person to fall sick or die. Haha. Of course, all of this is this Taoist's private guess, and it needs to be verified one by one. However, once it is verified, the medical skills passed down from the era of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors will undergo major changes and improvements. This is a huge project, and this Taoist will definitely not be able to complete it alone. Little Xian, would you be willing to lend this Taoist a hand? After listening to Sun Simiao's analysis, Li Zixuan couldn't help but prostrate himself in admiration. The theory of bacteria and viruses was originally mutually exclusive with traditional Chinese medicine, but Sun Simiao was able to find the similarities between the two so quickly, corroborate each other, and seek common ground while shelving differences. He was truly amazing. In fact, not only Sun Simiao, but he had also thought about these problems in private. In his previous life, he had received modern education. Although he wasn't a medical major, he still knew some basic theoretical knowledge in Western medicine. In this life, the body that he had been reborn in had followed spiritual master Lingxiu since he was a child. After a long period of illness, he had become a doctor, and he knew a lot of medicinal herbs. Later, when Sun Simiao lived in Yunshan, he had consulted Sun Simiao about many medical skills. It could be said that if he was in the 21st century, he would be considered an old Chinese medicine, and he would be able to treat common illnesses. As someone who knew both Western medicine and Chinese medicine, Li Zixuan had recently thought about the differences and similarities between the two. First of all, Chinese medicine paid attention to external and internal causes. When external and internal causes coexisted peacefully, the person would be able to maintain a normal state. If there was a problem with one side, the balance would be broken, and there would be problems with one's health. When external and internal causes were maintained within the tolerance range of the human body would be able to maintain its health. If it exceeded the tolerance range, the human body's health would not be guaranteed. Bacteria and viruses could be seen as external causes. This was within the treatment range of Chinese medicine, so Chinese medicine could treat them. Chinese medicine's treatment was to adjust the body's environment, allowing the body to adapt to the weather and making the human body unsuitable for bacteria to survive. Western medicine's treatment was to use antibiotics to eliminate bacteria. The two methods were different, but the goal was the same. Thinking of this, Li Zixuan looked at Sun Simiao and said with a serious face, "Daoist son, you're treating me as an outsider. You're my elder and also a great divine doctor revered by tens of thousands. It's reasonable for me to support you in continuing to study medicine. Don't worry, the medical school's microscopes will become more and more advanced in the future. The medical school will also recruit more outstanding medical students to assist Daoist Sun in developing the medical skills of the great Tang Empire to a height that surpassed the era of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. Human resources, material resources, and financial resources, as long as I, Li Zixuan, have it, I will definitely not be stingy." "Good. Good. Good. Little Xian, with your words, this poor Taoist is relieved. Spiritual Master Lingshu really didn't misjudge you." Sun Simiao smiled with a gratified face. The news that the workshop had developed a microscope quickly spread to the palace. This time, it was Li Zixuan who took the initiative to inform Li Er of the news. Old Li had sent 2 experts to be his bodyguards, and they could help him search for ores in the future. As the saying goes, a plum for a peach. Li Zixuan had no reason to deliberately hide such a good thing as the successful development of the microscope from Li Er. When Old Li heard the news, he led a few of his trusted officials to Yanhuang College to see the microscope with their own eyes. That's right, after the microscope was completed, they immediately moved back to Yanhuang College. After all, although there were guards around the workshop, it was far less safe than the college. Li Zixuan not only showed them a sample of the river water, but also a cross-section of the plant's root. Li Er and the other officials didn't expect that in the world where humans lived, there was a microscopic world that couldn't be seen with the naked eye. After Li Er and the others saw it, they couldn't help but click their tongues in amazement. Of course, these people definitely wouldn't dare to drink unboiled water in the future. After all, when they thought of the many little bugs in the water, who would dare to drink it directly? On the other hand, after experiencing this, Li Er was more confident in the scientific research ability of Yanhuang College. Thinking about the current technology of Yanhuang College, far away they could see the sun, moon, and stars. Near, they could see the dust of the mortal world. What couldn't they do? At this moment, Li Er was incomparably glad that he had agreed to Li Zixuan to establish Yanhuang College. Otherwise, even if he dominated the 4 seas, he would still be a frog at the bottom of the well in terms of knowledge. Zhenguan First Year, April 15th. The tens of thousands of troops that attacked Zhengzhou to quell the rebellion finally returned in triumph. Li Er, who had received the news in advance, didn't go to the morning court today. Instead, he led the court officials out of the city to personally welcome the victorious army. This was because this victory was too important to Li Er. Just think about it, if the Cui family really took down Luoyang with lightning speed, with Luoyang's large amount of grain, the Cui family and the imperial court army would probably be in a stalemate for 3 to 5 months. That would damage the prestige of the imperial court, and it would also make the other aristocratic families think that the imperial court was useless. They would all copy the Chui family and form their own army. At that time, with the huge influence of the 5 families and 7 hopes in the people, the imperial court would definitely be in a terrible state and Great Tang would be torn apart. When the Turks in the north saw this, they would definitely take advantage of the situation and attack Chang'an once more. At the same time, facing internal and external problems, even if the imperial court could deal with it and win, it would definitely be a Pyrrhic victory. This was something that Li Er didn't want to see no matter what. Today, Li Jing led 3 armies and completely suppressed the rebellion in Zhengzhou in less than half a month. The Chui family of Qinghe, the Jing family of Xinjiang, and the Chui family of Bowling were all wiped out. The other aristocratic families, who were watching in the dark, didn't dare to do anything when they saw how quickly the imperial court army suppressed the chaos. A few days ago, the family heads of the Li family of Zhao Prefecture and the Lu family of Fanyang had all come to Chang'an City to meet Li Er and express their loyalty. At this point, the 5 families and 7 hopes were destroyed: Chui family of Qinghe, Jing family of Xinjiang, and Chui family of Bowling, and surrendered: Li family of Zhao Prefecture, Lu family of Fanyang. The Wang family of Taiyuan had already submitted to Li Er, and as for the Li family of Longxi, they were the current royal family. The 7 aristocratic families had completely become the support of the imperial court, and Li Er could be said to be satisfied. He was only waiting to sharpen his blade and attack the Turks. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Chang'an City, outside the illustrious Virtue Gate. Li Jing led the army to Li Er and the officials. He hurriedly got off his horse and cupped his fists towards Li Er. "Pharmacist, no need to be so polite. Pharmacist, you have worked hard in this battle." Li Er laughed heartily and personally helped Li Jing up with a sincere expression. "For Your Majesty, for the Tang Empire, this old official is willing to die 1,000 times. Li Jing cupped his fists and lowered his head as he said in a deep voice, "Greetings, Your Majesty." The soldiers behind Li Jing immediately followed suit and bowed towards Li Er. In an instant, their voices were deafening. Li Er looked at the densely packed army in front of him. It was them who fought a bloody battle in Zhengzhou and wiped out the rebels, causing the other aristocratic families to not dare to make a move. Thinking of this, he said loudly, "Soldiers, rise. All of you went to Zhengzhou and quickly quelled the rebellion. After hearing the news of victory, I was very happy. All of you are good men of the Tang Empire. Today, the 3 armies have returned in triumph. I am very happy. Men, prepare good wine and meat. I want to reward the 3 armies tonight." Ha ha! When the soldiers heard Li Er's praise, they were all elated. At this moment, all of them said loudly, "Thank you, Your Majesty." Li Er nodded and said, "Return to the city. All of you have worked hard in the Battle of Zhengzhou. Today, I want to reward you according to your contributions." Thus, the civil and military officials and soldiers of the 3 armies all followed Li Er into the city. The citizens in the city had already seen the news of the army's triumphant return on Datong Daily. At this moment, they were all lined up on both sides of the streets to welcome them. Everywhere the army passed, it would definitely attract the most enthusiastic cheers. Because the Tang Empire had won another battle, this meant that the lives of the citizens would be even better. Of course, it was not all cheers. There were also curses. In the middle of the army, there were many prison wagons. Inside the wagons were the captured war criminals. When the common people saw the people inside the wagons, they started cursing, throwing rotten eggs, stones, bricks, and so on. Then, they all came. "This is the old grandfather of the Chui family?" "Yes. It's him. I saw him last year when the Chui family was wreaking havoc." "Bah! Chui Junchuo, that old fart, is still thinking of rebelling at such an old age? He has harmed the lives of so many good men for no reason. That old thing really deserves to die." 2 days ago, I saw on the Tang Daily that Guangxing County was clearly surrounded and the rebels were bound to lose. However, not only did Cui Junchuo not surrender, he even captured the elderly, women, and children in the city to defend the city for him. He wanted to drag the entire city down with him. How despicable! Hiss! There was such a thing? Then what happened in the end? Heh! It is said that good and evil will be repaid in the end. In the end, a reporter from Guangxing County called Li Yu from the Great Tang Daily used the telegraph invented by the Marquis of Yong to contact the army outside the city. They agreed to open the city gates at night. It was because of this that the army of the imperial court was able to enter the city without losing a single soldier. Whoa! It was the Marquis of Yong'an's telegraph machine that contributed greatly? Isn't that so? This telegraph machine is amazing. It is said that it can send news to the other party from 100 li away in an instant. Why does this Li Yu have the Marquis of Yong'an's telegraph machine? You don't know Li Yu? She is the most famous reporter in the Tang Daily's editorial department. Most of the news that we have seen in the past were written by her. Tisk tsk. Then why did she go to Zhengzhou? How would I know? Anyway, it is all thanks to her that we were able to quell the rebellion in Zhengzhou. Otherwise, all the citizens of Zhengzhou would have been killed by Cui Junchuo. The citizens were discussing fervently. The more they scolded, the angrier they became. They threw all the rotten eggs and bricks in their hand. Then, many of them took off their shoes and threw them at Cui Junchuo and the others. Soon, the civil and military officials, as well as the main generals who were responsible for quelling the rebellion, arrived at the palace. As for the tens of thousands of soldiers, they returned to the barrack. Sir, do I really have to go in? But His Majesty didn't let me in just now. At the back of the group of officials, little Yu tugged at Li Zishuan's arm and said timidly. Today, Li Zishuan also came to the morning assembly. Hearing this, Li Zishuan found it funny and said, "Of course you have to go in. Uncle Li's request for merit has your names on it. If you don't go, His Majesty will blame you. Who can bear the consequences? Go, go. Go in quickly." Chapter 1346. Within the Ganlu Hall. At this moment, a reward ceremony was being held. Li Er's face was filled with joy as he sat on the dragon throne. Below him, the officials stood according to their rank. As for the generals whose ranks were not high enough, such as Li Yu, Meng Wenhao, and Iron Egg, they were all waiting in the side hall. After a round of greetings, Li Er looked at the officials in the hall and said, "Half a month ago, Cui Junchuo plotted a rebellion, trying to secretly take down Luoyang and fight against the imperial court. Luckily, Datong Daily's Li Yu and Nanyang Yi families, Yi Fashion discovered the Cui family's plot and sent the news back to Chang'an through the telegraph. After which, Li Er led 60,000 troops to attack Luoyang. Duan Zhishuan fought the reinforcements of the Cui and Jing families outside of Guangxing County. In the end, Li Er and Lu Rengue, who was hiding in the city, worked together and easily entered the city without losing a single soldier. This was the fortune of the imperial court and the people of Zhengzhou. As they say, merit should be rewarded and wrongdoings should be punished. The frontline soldiers did well in suppressing the rebellion and naturally should be rewarded. Cui Junchuo, Jingshuwu, and Cui Wenji rebelled against their superiors and bewitched the people's hearts. This time, Hunan Circuit's military chief, Li Jing, led the troops to suppress the rebellion. In just half a month, the rebels were completely wiped out, solving a huge problem for the imperial court. Li Jing was given the title of Zhua Guanglu Daifu, 1,000 pieces of silk, and 400 households. Li Jing quickly went up and cupped his hands. "Thank you, Your Majesty. However, how can this old subject receive such a great reward? I hope Your Majesty can take back the order." At the end of the day, Li Jing still felt that the annihilation of the Cui family was not a challenge for the imperial army that had the telegraph. He felt that the victory of the imperial army was to be expected. On the contrary, it would be abnormal if they were defeated. In layman's terms, Li Jing felt that the difficulty of this dungeon was too low. Even if they won, Li Er did not need to reward him. This was what he should do. It was not that the enemy was too weak, but that our army with the telegraph was too strong. Li Er smiled. The army wiped out the rebels. Li Er, as the commander of the 3 armies, why shouldn't you be rewarded? If I don't reward you, wouldn't the world say that I'm stingy? When Li Jing heard that, he could only cup his hands and say, "Thank you for your reward, your majesty." Yes. Li Er nodded his head and continued. Qin Xiong, the deputy commander of the marching army, Qing Jijie, the commander-in-chief of the right army, Niu Jinda, the commander-in-chief of the left army, for their meritorious service in leading the army to kill the enemy and killing the enemy's general, each of them will be conferred the title of Junior Guardian of the Crown Prince, 500 bolts of silk, 100,000 coins, and 300 fiefs. Qin Xiong, Qing Yaojin, and Niu Jinda stepped forward and cupped their hands. "Thank you, your majesty, for your reward." Li Zishuan, who was standing below, couldn't help but feel happy for these 3 old generals. Yuqi Jingda, on the other hand, was a little jealous. This time, Li Er had dispatched a large army to battle, but he didn't let him participate in the battle, causing him to only be able to anxiously wait for news from the front lines in Chang'an. However, although he was a little jealous, he did not go to the extent of being jealous of Qin Xiong and the others. After more than 10 years of friendship, how could he be jealous of such a small reward? Next was the rewards for the local provincial governors and military officials who had contributed to quelling the rebellion. For example, Suizhou Provincial Governor Wang Yu, Bianzhou Provincial Governor Zhao Kai, Hunan Ambassador Ren Kan, and so on. Old Li's rewards were usually empty positions or meritorious titles, along with some monetary rewards. It was rare to directly promote one's official rank. It was clear that Li Er knew that with the lineup of the army, as long as any general was not muddle-headed, they would be able to win. The awards ceremony lasted for a full 30 minutes before it finally reached the content that Li Zishuan was more concerned about. Marquis Yong and Li Zishuan, although he did not participate in the battle this time, the telegraph he created, as well as the Datong Daily Editorial Office Li Yu, all played a crucial role in this battle. Without the telegraph and without Li Yu, the court would not have been able to rush to Zhengzhou in time and would not have been able to coordinate with the new army in the city. Although he was not on the battlefield, he contributed a lot to quelling the rebellion. I have decided to confer Li Zishuan the title of Crown Prince's Junior Guardian, give him 1,000 horses, and reward him with the right to mine 3 mineral veins. Li Er, who was sitting on the dragon throne, said slowly. A generous reward. This was a generous reward. It was not that Li Zishuan received more rewards than Li Jing and the others, but the rewards that Li Jing and the others received were all obtained from fighting on the battlefield. However, Li Zishuan did not go to the battlefield at all, but in the end, he received a generous reward. It really made others envious and jealous. Li Zishuan was delighted. He had originally been waiting for Li Er to reward his students and Li Yu. He did not expect Li Er to give him such a thing in the end. It was really out of his expectations. "Thank you, your majesty, for your reward." Li Zishuan stepped forward and bowed respectfully. He would not be as polite to Li Er as Li Jing. Li Zishuan did not care much about the promotion from the original 3rd-ranked Crown Prince Zhan Shi to the 2nd-ranked Crown Prince's Junior Guardian. However, the reward of the right to mine 3 mineral veins scratched Li Zishuan's itch. He did not lack power or money, he only lacked mineral veins. Old Li gave him the right to mine 3 mineral veins at once. It could be said that it was not a big deal. Although Old Li did not say what mineral it was, in the ancient times when salt and iron were monopolized, it was already very good to have a private mine. Yes, kid, don't be complacent. I have high hopes for your Yanhuang College. In the future, you must continue to work hard and create an even better divine weapon. Li Er looked at Li Zishuan and said meaningfully. Li Zishuan understood that old Li was urging him to quickly improve the telegraph. He bowed and replied, "Yes, Your Majesty." Li Er nodded and ordered, calling for Lu Ringue of Bien Province to enter the hall. As Lu Ringue was only a 7th-rank army officer, he did not have the qualifications to enter the imperial court. Therefore, he was only waiting in the side hall for the summons. Calling for Lu Ringue of Bien Province to enter the hall. Naturally, an attendant passed on Li Er's words. After a while, Lu Ringue walked in excitedly. He was just a small army officer in a local area. He had never thought that one day he would be able to enter the hall that symbolized the supreme power of the world. When he was in the side hall, he had already said to himself hundreds of times, "Don't be nervous, don't be nervous." At this time, walking on the smooth stone tiles of Taiji Palace, Lu Ringue's previously restless heart suddenly calmed down. "This general, Lu Ringue of Bien Province, pays his respects to Your Majesty." Walking to the center of the officials, Lu Ringue bowed and saluted. His voice was full of energy, neither servile nor overbearing. Lu Ringue's appearance was not bad. On the contrary, he was quite handsome. At this moment, he was not in a hurry and looked neither servile nor overbearing. Li Er could not help but secretly nod and say, "Lu Ringue, in this rebellion in the city, you first rescued Wei Zheng in the chaos, then assisted Li Yu to send the news of the Chui family's rebellion back to Chang'an. Finally, you went deep into the enemy's camp and joined the new soldiers to open the city gate from inside the city, allowing the army outside the city to enter the city. You saved hundreds of thousands of people in Guangxing County from danger. It can be said that you have made great contributions. I have decided to promote you to the right commander of the right Wu and give you the title of Ningyuan Army General, 100 pieces of silk and 100,000 yuan. Promotion made an exception. At this moment, in the hearts of all the officials in the hall, these 4 words appeared at the same time. A 7th-rank army officer in the local area was promoted to a 4th-rank army officer in the capital's right Wu camp. This kind of treatment could only be described as an exception. Lu Ringue was a little confused at this moment. After all, although he knew that he had made a contribution in this battle, he did not expect Li Er to reward him so heavily. This feeling was like a pie falling from the sky. "I, Lu Ringue, thank Your Majesty for your kindness. In the future, I will do my best for the Tang Empire until my death." Lu Ringue bowed deeply and expressed his thanks. Li Er nodded and said, "Summon Han Li, Meng Wenhao, and Li Yu to the hall." Lu Ringue knew that Li Er would continue to reward others, so he wanted to retreat to the back of the officials and find a place to stand. Unexpectedly, a young official beside him coughed lightly, looked at him, and pointed to the place beside him, indicating for him to stand there. Lu Ringue looked at the person's appearance and was shocked. Wasn't this the person that little Ewer called Mr. outside the hall earlier? He clearly remembered that Li Yu had told him when he was in Zhengzhou that her Mr. was Marquis Yong and Li Zishuan. Lu Ringue knew that his rank was not high enough, so how would he dare to stand together with Li Zishuan? Wasn't this breaking the rules? Thus, he clasped his fists at Li Zishuan with an apologetic expression, and then slipped to the last row of the general's camp. Right at this moment, Bruiser, Meng Wenhao, and Li Yu walked into the hall as well. After they bowed to Li Er was just about to speak when he suddenly caught a glimpse of Li Yu's face, and he couldn't help but be slightly stunned. A trace of confusion and reminiscence flashed across his eyes. He looked at Li Yu quietly, which made Li Yu a little uncomfortable. The officials in the hall did not hear Li Er speak for a long time. Many of them could not help but raise their heads and look at Li Er. Cough cough. Zhang Sun Wuji did not want his brother-in-law to lose his composure too much, so he coughed heavily. Li Er finally woke up from his deep thoughts. He straightened his face and said in a deep voice, Meng Wenhao Li Yu, during this rebellion in Zhengzhou, the two of you used the telegraph to exchange information for the imperial court and the frontline army. You have contributed greatly. I hereby confer Meng Wenhao the title of Civil Linlang and Li Yu the title of Datong Daily's Gold Medal Reporter. You have the right to listen to memorials. If you encounter any injustice among the people, you can directly report to me. Civil Linlang was a 9th-rank civil official. Although the control was small, the significance was significant. This meant that although Meng Wenhao had not taken the imperial examination, he already had the title of an official. This starting point was not ordinary. The reward given to Li Yu was even more impressive. The right to listen to memorials was a privilege that only imperial censors had. Now it was given to a girl. This made all the officials in the hall stunned. I, Meng Wenhao, my daughter Li Yu, thank you, Your Majesty, for your reward. Meng Wenhao and Li Yu bowed and thanked him. At this moment Li Er continued, Where is Han Li? Chapter 1347. This kid is here. In the Sweet Dew Hall, after Li Er rewarded Meng Wenhao and Li Yu, it was Iron Egg's turn. Meng Wenhao and Li Yu took a step back and made room for Iron Egg. Li Er looked at Iron Egg and slowly said, Han Li, during the Zhengzhou rebellion, you not only cooperated with Meng Wenhao to send information through the telegraph, but also killed Ming Huan, an expert from the Chui clan's Hall of Worship, on the night we invaded Guangqing County. Ming Huan was one of the most wanted criminals of the Supreme Court. I didn't expect you to kill him with your sword, so you deserve a great reward. I have decided to make you a deputy lieutenant of Renyong and reward you with 50 bolts of silk. Thank you for your reward, Your Majesty. Iron Egg cupped his hands and said calmly. His expression didn't change much, because his ambition wasn't to become an official. He only wanted to learn from Li Zixuan and protect his family in the future. Unexpectedly, Li Er did not ask Bruiser and the others to leave. Instead, he continued, I heard that Ming Huan was a famous expert in the Jianghu, but you killed him with your sword. You are indeed a young hero. Your father accompanied the imperial army and fought with the Turks in the north for many years. He fought bravely and killed countless enemies. At the critical moment, he blocked an arrow with his body and saved Minister Qin's life. I have also heard of what happened after that. Although your father violated military discipline, he left alone because he didn't want to be a burden to the army. Therefore, I will make the decision today to pardon your father's desertion and make him a deputy lieutenant of Zhaowu. Li Er, who had won the battle, was very enthusiastic, as if he wanted to grant amnesty to the world. He even dug up Han Tianhu's old case, which was very surprising. Hearing this, Bruiser was pleasantly surprised. It could be said that this was one of his greatest regrets. Han Tianhu was a great hero in his heart, but this hero had never received the treatment he deserved. Instead, he had always been treated as a deserter. Now that this injustice had been cleared, Bruiser was even happier than when he had received his reward. He excitedly cupped his fists. He cupped his hands and said excitedly, Han Li thanks Your Majesty on behalf of my father. Yes, all of you can leave for now. Since the meritorious officials have been rewarded, the next step is to punish the guilty officials. Li Er nodded his head in satisfaction and waved his hand to signal them to leave. The awards ceremony officially came to an end. Li Er's eyes darkened and he said coldly, Lu Dui. The Chancellor of the Supreme Court, Lu Dui, had a solemn expression. He cupped his hands and said, Here? Li Er said in a deep voice, A few days ago, I asked you to thoroughly investigate the matter of suspicious officials colluding with the enemy and betraying the country. How is the progress? When the officials in the hall heard this, they couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. They thought that old Li was going to bring up old scores. Lu Dui saluted with a solemn expression and said, Your Majesty, these days, the Supreme Court, together with the Ministry of Justice and the Censorate, have tried 42 guilty officials and confirmed a total of 38 officials. They secretly sent messages to the Chui family of Qinghe, the Zheng family of Xingyang, and the Chui family of Boling. Most of these people are the direct descendants and collateral descendants of these three families. There are also some who used to be hanger-ons of these three families. The other four officials were sending news to the Lu family of Fanyang that the imperial court was preparing to encircle and annihilate Zhengzhou. In addition, this old official also found out that there were 12 other officials who were their accomplices. These people didn't have time to send a message, but they realized that Baiqi's people were hiding in the dark. However, they were exposed by the others. The Lu family of Fanyang? Lu Sideo, what do you have to say? Li Er's eyes flashed as he looked at one of the officials in the hall and asked. An old man with white hair and beard walked out shakily. This person was the current head of the Lu family of Fanyang. After the news of the Zhengzhou rebellion being quelled spread throughout the world, he came to Chang'an City a few days ago to show his loyalty to Li Er. Lu Sideo cupped his hands and said, Your Majesty, I never asked anyone to send a message to the Lu family. The Lu family lives peacefully in Fanyang and definitely has no intention of disobeying me. When I learned of the Chui family's rebellion, I even wanted to bring all the servants of the Lu family to quell the rebellion for your Majesty. However, when I just left, I heard that the imperial army had destroyed the rebels with a thunderous force. I could only give up. However, the Lu family's loyalty to the imperial court can be seen by the sun and moon. I hope that your Majesty can see through this. Li Er was speechless. Lu Sideo's excuses completely denied that the officials were related to the Lu family. He couldn't do anything to the Lu family because of this, so he said with a cold gaze, Whether the Lu family is loyal or not, I will let people investigate this matter clearly. Lu Dui, listen up. All the officials who colluded with the enemy are to be removed from their positions and sent to Yuzhou. Let them guard the borders for me. Guarding the borders meant that there was a slim chance of survival. Ever since Li Er ascended the throne, there were very few officials who were given such heavy punishments. Take Wei Zheng for example. Although he was Li Jianqing's top strategist and had suggested Li Jianqing to assassinate him several times, after the Xuanwu Gate incident, Li Er still let bygones be bygones and used Wei Zheng. From this, one could see how magnanimous Li Er was. However, these dozens of officials were different from Wei Zheng. They were colluding with the enemy and betraying the country. If they succeeded, the Chui family would attack Luoyang in advance before the imperial army arrived in Zhengzhou. In that case, it would bring immeasurable losses to the imperial court. This was something Li Er couldn't tolerate. This old official obeys. Lu Dui cupped his hands and said. Li Er's eyes flashed and he asked again, Where is Lu Zhenghui? Lu Zhenghui was born in the Lu family of Hunan. At the end of the Sui dynasty, Lu Zhenghui was the Yingyang prefecture's secretary of Taiyuan. Later, he led his troops to join Li Yuan and was sent to Taiyuan to report Wang Wei and Gao Junius' rebellion. After the Tang dynasty was established, he was ordered to stay in Taiyuan and manage the rear. After Lu Wuzhou attacked Taiyuan, Lu Zhenghui was captured, but he remained loyal. After being rescued, he served as the Minister of Justice. This old official is here. An old official walked out from the civil officials' camp and bowed respectfully to Li Er. Li Er asked in a deep voice, Chui Junchuo, Zheng Shuwu, and Chui Wenji rebelled against the imperial court. According to the Tang dynasty's laws, what are their crimes? Lu Zhenghui cupped his hands expressionlessly and replied, Your Majesty, rebellion is a capital crime with 9 familial exterminations. Chui Junchuo abducted hundreds of thousands of people in Zhengzhou, which is a capital crime of capital crimes. All the officials felt a chill in their hearts. Capital crime. Now, there were no more than 20 or 30 prisoners on death row executed in the Tang dynasty every year. The main reason was that, after the war at the end of the Sui dynasty, the population of the Central Plains sharply decreased. Instead of killing the prisoners on death row, it was better to exile them to the barren land like Cheongjo, which could be regarded as a contribution to the Tang dynasty. Now, if Li Er executed all the children of the three great families who rebelled, Chang'an would really be a bloodbath. Li Er thought for a moment and said, "Put the culprits Cui Junchuo, Jing Shuwu, and Cui Wenji in the death row and choose a day to behead them." Pan Jinyue, the governor of Zhengzhou, and Cui Quan, the commandant of Zhechang's mansion in Zhengzhou, are accomplices to the evildoers and rebelled against their superiors. They will be stripped of their official positions and executed immediately. All the children of the Cui family in Qinghe, the Jing family in Xinjiang, and the Cui family in Boling will be exiled to Yuzhou and Yunzhou to guard the border. All the women will be demoted to slaves and sent to the musical house. Ruthless. Li Er was really ruthless. After what he did, the three great families were completely uprooted. At least for hundreds of years, they would not be able to rise again. Li Zishuan stood among the officials and couldn't help but fall silent after hearing that. The culprits like Cui Junchuo were not worthy of sympathy. What he sympathized with was the women of the three great families. As women of the five great families, these women were originally the partners of men in the world. Now, because of Cui Junchuo and others, they suffered an unexpected calamity and were sent to the musical house. They were bound to become the playthings of the officials, and their end was miserable. But in fact, Cui Junchuo's rebellion had nothing to do with them. If Cui Junchuo's rebellion succeeded, the ones who benefited the most were the men in charge of the families. But if the rebellion failed, these women would also suffer an unexpected calamity. This was the ancient times. The fate of women was always attached to men, and they could never be the masters of themselves. Li Zishuan inexplicably felt some sympathy from the bottom of his heart. But even if he sympathized, what could he do? This was a culture that had been passed down for thousands of years. He could not change it in a short time and could only let it be. "Your Majesty, although Cui Junchuo and others have committed a serious crime of rebellion, these people are old. I'm afraid it's not appropriate to execute them." At this moment, Fang Xianling stood out and cupped his hands to Li Er. Old Fang didn't want to plead for mercy for the aristocratic families, but just out of a humanitarian spirit. After all, in ancient times, the old people were respected by the whole society. Li Er frowned when he heard that. He must kill Cui Junchuo and others, but what Fang Xianling said was reasonable. After a moment of silence, he said, "Then give each of them a white silk and leave their bodies intact." "Your Majesty is wise." Fang Xianling also understood that this was the biggest concession that Li Er could make, so he didn't continue to press. "Today, the army returns triumphantly. I not only want to reward the army in the barracks, but also intend to lift the curfew tonight and celebrate with the people. My dear officials, if you have something to report, I will withdraw from the court." Those who should be rewarded had been rewarded, and those who should be punished had been punished. Li Er was in a good mood and said loudly. None of the civil and military officials said anything. Li Er decisively announced the withdrawal of the court. The officials took their leave one by one. Cheng Yaojin, Qin Qiong, Niu Jinda, and Li Jing, the generals of the southern expedition, walked together with Li Zishuan. Cheng Yaojin patted Li Zishuan's shoulder and laughed. "Ha ha! Xiao Xian, although you didn't personally go to the battlefield, you still got a lot of credit. Many generals are envious." "That's all because of your Majesty's kindness," Li Zishuan said modestly. Li Jing waved his hand and said, "Little Xian, you can't say that. If it weren't for your telegraph, the army definitely wouldn't have been able to take down the three aristocratic families so smoothly in Zhengzhou. No one can find fault with your contribution." Qin Qiong also stroked his beard and said, "Ha ha! That's right, if it weren't for your telegraph machine and your student, we would probably be fighting in Luoyang in Hunan province. Qing Yaojin suddenly turned his head and patted Lu Ringue behind him. He said proudly, "Ha ha! Lu Ringue, you little brat, you've finally become a soldier under old Cheng's command. It wasn't easy for me to snatch you from that old brat Wang Yu. You better perform well for old Cheng." Qing Yaojin was the general of the right Wei, and Lu Ringue was now the right commander of the right Wei. It was not wrong to say that he was Qing Yaojin's soldier. This general obeys. Only then did Lu Ringue realize that he had been promoted because of Qing Yaojin behind the scenes. Chapter 1348. Zhao Song, do you know where Li Yu came from? After the morning court session, Li Er came to the Suite du Hall. Recalling the scene from the morning court session, his gaze darkened. He suddenly looked at Zhao Song and asked. Zhao Song was stunned. Clearly, he did not expect Li Er to suddenly ask such a question. He quickly gathered all the information he knew in his mind, then stepped forward and answered, "Your Majesty, according to what I know, Li Yu came to Chang'an City last year. The first person she met was Meng Wenhao. Later on, by chance, she met the Duke of Yong'an. The Duke of Yong'an saw that she was smart and had no one to rely on in Chang'an City, so he arranged for her to work in the Datong Daily editorial department. The girl behind him is also very hard-working and studious. She stood out from the group of literary talents in the editorial department of Tang Dynasty Daily and became the best reporter there." Li Er nodded and asked again, "Then do you know where Li Yu came from? Who are her parents? Where do they live?" Zhao Song frowned and thought for a while. He shook his head and said, "Your Majesty, I only know that Li Yu came from Jiangnan Yuezhou, but I don't know who her parents are." Then, he asked tentatively, "Your Majesty, do you think there's something wrong with Li Yu's identity?" He was not stupid. For Li Er to be so concerned about someone, that person's identity was definitely not ordinary. Li Er frowned and asked, "Zhao Song, don't you think Li Yu looks like someone?" "Forget it, at that time, you weren't at my side yet. Send someone to investigate Li Yu's father and mother, but don't alarm Li Yu and the Duke of Yong'an." For a moment, Zhao Song was confused. Was he investigating Li Yu as a bad person or as a good person? Although he was full of doubts, Zhao Song knew what to ask and what not to ask after accompanying Li Er for so many years. He bowed deeply and replied, "Yes, I'll arrange for someone to go to Jiangnan Yuezhou." Li Er nodded. Zhao Song saw that Li Er did not have any other orders, so he left. Similar, too similar. But how is this possible? In the hall, Li Er sighed faintly. "Ha ha. Wenhao, your parents must be worried about you. Go back first. We'll go to the academy tomorrow." After leaving the palace, Iron Egg, Meng Wenhao, Li Yu, Peng Feiji, Lu Ringue, and the others all walked together with Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan generously gave Meng Wenhao a day off. After all, he knew about Meng Wenhao's family situation. At this moment, Meng Wenhao was also a little homesick. After all, he had never been away from home for so many days in his life. Moreover, after experiencing war and life and death, he undoubtedly cherished family and loved ones even more. "Then, sir, I'll go home first. Tomorrow morning, I'll go to Yunshan. I'll make the best use of my time to make up for all the missed lessons this month." Meng Wenhao cupped his hands and said, "Yes, go." Li Zixuan nodded. Meng Wenhao turned to look at Li Yu and the rest. These were his comrades in Zhengzhou. Taking a deep breath, Meng Wenhao cupped his hands and said, "Little Your Iron Egg, we will meet again at Cloud Mountain. Big Brother Lu, it's all thanks to you in Zhengzhou this time. If you have time, you can go to Yunshan to take a look. See you at Yunshan." Iron Egg and Li Yu also cupped their hands and said goodbye. Lu Ringue laughed and cupped his hands and said, "Little brother, take care. I'll definitely go to Yunshan to take a look at the Immortal Academy." Meng Wanhao nodded and turned to leave. Li Zixuan looked at Lu Ringue and said with a smile, I've heard the details of the battle from little Yu. Adjunct Lu, oh no, General Lu, thank you for saving my cousin Yi Fashion. I don't like to owe people favors. If you encounter any trouble in Chang, a city in the future, feel free to come to Yunshan to find me. This was a kind of promise to repay a debt of gratitude. At the same time, it was also a kind of appreciation for talent. After all, the person in front of him was the first hero in China's history to resist the Japanese. Lu Ringue was flattered. He quickly cupped his hands and said, Marquis, you can't say that. That night, Brother Fashion was being hunted down. It's true that I saved him, but without Brother Fashion, I wouldn't have been able to meet Miss Li Yu, and I wouldn't have been able to send the information about the battle to the imperial court. Therefore, rather than saying that I saved Brother Fashion, it's better to say that Brother Fashion saved me. Li Zixuan nodded in his heart. This Lu Ringue's character was not bad. He didn't force others to repay his kindness. He smiled and said, Ha ha. Anyway, I owe you a favor. What I said earlier still works. General Lu, do you have a place to stay in Chang City? If not, I can send someone to arrange it for you. Lu Ringue cupped his hands and said, I don't dare to trouble you, Marquis. I'm currently staying with Governor Zhao in the post house. After reporting to the right sentinel tomorrow, I'll be staying in the barracks. As for settling down in Chang City, I haven't considered it yet. It wasn't that he hadn't considered it, but that he couldn't afford it. Although the housing prices in this era couldn't be compared to modern housing prices, this was Chang City. It wasn't something that a newcomer like Lu Ringue could afford after joining the army. However, Li Er had rewarded him with 100,000 copper coins this time. Lu Ringue pondered in his heart that after he stabilized his foundation in the Right Guards, he would take out some of his savings and perhaps be able to buy a residence in Chang and bring his family over. Li Zixuan nodded and said, If that's the case, then we'll part ways here. We'll meet again in the future. Marquis, take care. Lu Ringue cupped his hands and left in the direction of the post house. Although he was now a soldier under Qing Yaojin, Zhao Kai was his old superior. He had to say goodbye before he left. Haha, Iron Egg. I didn't expect you to have improved after going to Zhengzhou. You actually dared to go against the fourth of the 4 Tai-Bai ghosts, Ming Huan? Li Yu, Iron Egg and Pang Feiji were all going back to Yun Mountain. Li Zixuan came in a carriage today. Therefore, after Lu Ringue left, the 4 of them got on the carriage. On the way, Li Zixuan looked at Iron Egg and said with a faint smile, The details of the battle in the city that night weren't revealed in the report that Meng Wanhao sent to the imperial court through the telegraph. Li Zixuan only heard about Iron Egg killing Ming Huan from Li Yu today. When he heard the news, a layer of cold sweat seeped out of his back. Master, Iron Egg was wrong. Don't tell sister, or she'll be worried again. Iron Egg heard the dissatisfaction in Li Zixuan's words. He didn't explain anything and directly admitted his mistake. Humph. You still know how to worry about your sister? Do you know that while you were gone, although your sister didn't tell me, I don't know how many tears she shed for you behind your back? Don't you know how much you're worth? Ming Huan is one of the 4 Tai-Bai ghosts. How can you deal with him? Li Zixuan scolded mercilessly. Although the battle in the city had eliminated the remaining 3 of the 4 Tai-Bai ghosts and solved one of Li Zixuan's problems, he didn't want to eliminate the 3 ghosts in this way. Han Yushi only had this one brother, and he only had this one disciple. How could Ming Huan's life be more valuable than Iron Egg's? Master, I just wanted to practice. Big Brother Lu was helping me from the side. I'll be fine. Besides, I know the Taiji sword. It won't be a problem for me to block Ming Huan for a while. Please don't tell my sister about this, okay? Iron Egg will definitely finish his homework and practice hard in the future. Iron Egg hurriedly begged. To him, Han Yushi could be said to be both his elder sister and his mother. After he was born, his mother passed away. It was Han Yushi who raised him single-handedly, so in his heart Han Yushi was very, very important. Li Zishuan pondered for a moment and said, "It's good that you know you're wrong. Since you're back, go to the courtyard and accompany your sister. You and Wenhao will go to the academy tomorrow. Since you can survive Ming Huan's attack, it means that your martial arts have improved. In the future, you'll have to double your training." After saying that, Li Zishuan's face suddenly showed a devilish smile. "Ah, master? I still have a lot of homework to do in the academy." Iron Egg's face turned bitter when he heard that. Ever since he started studying at Yanhuang College, his martial arts hadn't fallen behind. He would complete the training tasks Li Zishuan gave him every day. It was a habit he had kept for a long time. Then find some time. You can't fall behind in martial arts or homework. You said it yourself just now. Li Zishuan didn't care. At this time, he looked at Li Yu and smiled. "Little fishy, now that you've become a gold medal reporter in the editorial department, what do you think?" A gold medal reporter had the right to report to the emperor. It could be said that the current Li Yu could go anywhere, even the county magistrate and provincial governor wouldn't dare to provoke her. Little Fishy smiled sweetly and said, "Of course I'm happy. With this identity I can do a lot of things for the people. However, saving Wei Zwiching this time is what I'm most happy about. By the way, I have to thank you for the telegraph." Li Zishuan waved his hand and smiled. "Haha, why are you thanking me? You did well this time. I'll host a banquet tonight at Yunshan to welcome you and Iron Egg." "Hee, thank you, sir." "Marquis, you're back." Back at Yunshan, Li Zishuan and the other two jumped down from the carriage. Lu Feng and Lu Yun came up to them. Li Zishuan hadn't given them the task of searching for ores, so they took the dozens of imperial guards with them and acted as Li Zishuan's bodyguards. Li Zishuan nodded and then walked into the courtyard with Iron Egg. However, Pang Feiji, who was at the back, had a strong sense of vigilance in his heart. He sensed an inexplicable sense of danger. "You are?" Pang Feiji stared at Lu Feng and Lu Yun and asked expressionlessly. "Oh, you must be Pang Sigi? I'm Lu Feng and this is my brother Lu Yun. We are from the Imperial Guards of the Northern Government. His Majesty sent us to protect Marquis and help Marquis search for ores." Lu Feng saw that Pang Feiji's posture was steady and he walked like a soldier. Furthermore, Pang Feiji came down from the carriage with Li Zishuan. He thought for a while and guessed Pang Feiji's identity. Hence, he took the initiative to introduce himself. Pang Feiji's expression changed slightly, and he felt a little disappointed. He forced himself to calm down and saluted Lu Feng. "Oh, so you too are from the Imperial Guard. Sorry for the disrespect." In the past, he was only a Si-gu of the right Marquis household, while Lu Feng and Lu Yun were the Imperial Guards of the Northern Yamen. They were the elites of the elites in the Imperial Guard. Therefore, in terms of background, Pang Feiji was unconsciously lower than them. Lu Feng saluted with a smile. "Haha. Since we're all here to protect Marquis, then we'll be brothers in the future. There's no need to be polite." You're right. Brother Lu is right. I've just returned from Zhengzhou and have some matters to attend to. I won't keep you company." Pang Feiji forced a smile and saluted with a salute before taking his leave. "Big brother, this Pang Feiji doesn't seem very happy to see us?" Lu Yun scratched his head and looked at Lu Feng in confusion. Lu Feng looked at Pang Feiji's back and said lightly, "No matter what, he was the first to follow Marquis. Now that he saw that we're here to protect Marquis, of course he would feel uncomfortable. This is human nature." Lu Yun suddenly understood. He frowned and said unhappily, "But big brother, we didn't want to come. It was His Majesty who ordered us to come. Why is he angry with us?" "Sigh. Second brother, don't speak nonsense and offend others. We came to Cloud Mountain under His Majesty's orders to follow Marquis orders. Don't cause trouble. Go and tell the brothers to be respectful when they see Pang Feiji. Don't cause trouble, Lu Feng said sternly to Lu Yun. Yes, big brother. Hey, big brother, you're finally back. Pang Feiji returned to his house. After putting down his luggage, he met his brothers at the side of the courtyard. Xiongde, Xiong come here. Pang Feiji had a question to ask. When he saw the two of them, he quickly waved his hand. Hey, big brother. You didn't get hurt in Zhengzhou, right? A fat soldier came over and held Pang Feiji's hand. He looked at him from head to toe. Hey. Let go of me, I'm fine. Pang Feiji waved his hand and said seriously, let me ask you, when did Lu Feng, Lu Yun, and the rest arrive? Xiongde thought for a while and replied, Big brother, they've only been here for 5 or 6 days. Then why did they come to protect Marquis? Could it be that someone tried to assassinate the Marquis while I was away? Pang Feiji asked doubtfully. Xiong shook his head and said, No, big brother. No one tried to assassinate Marquis. They came here under His Majesty's orders. Other than protecting Marquis, they also have to help Marquis look for ores in the future. It's said that Lu Feng and Lu Yun's ancestors were Taoist geomancers who specialize in searching for ores. However, Marquis hasn't assigned them a task yet, so they're staying here temporarily. Searching for ores? Pang Feiji's face became gloomy. At this moment, he felt like he was about to lose his job. Oh no, he was about to fall out of favor. This was because the person who stole his job seemed to be more talented than him. Chapter 1349. 2 in 1 chapter. When Iron Egg and the others came to the front yard, Han Yushi was sitting quietly in the front yard reading the newspaper. In recent issues of Datong Daily, almost all the news was about the specific plot of the Battle of Guan City. Because of Iron Egg, Han Yushi did not miss a single piece of news. Although there was not a single piece of news in it, there was a detailed record of Iron Egg's situation in Guan City. Sis! At this moment, a shout came from the courtyard door. Han Yushi's body trembled, and she quickly looked towards the source of the sound and saw Iron Egg running over. Iron Egg? You're back? Han Yushi stood up in surprise and went over to greet him. Iron Egg, you didn't get hurt in Guan City, right? Han Yushi pressed Iron Egg's shoulder and looked up and down at Iron Egg seriously. She asked with a face full of concern. Iron Egg thought of what Li Zixuan said in the carriage and couldn't help but feel a lump in his throat. He said with red eyes, Sis, I'm fine. I didn't get hurt either. Don't worry. Han Yushi held back her tears, patted Iron Egg's shoulder and said, It's good that you didn't get hurt. It's good that you didn't get hurt. Iron Egg, you must not have eaten well these days in the army, right? Sis will make you something delicious for lunch. Yes. Iron Egg nodded, and then he smiled happily and said, Sis, I have an official position this time. His Majesty made me the Deputy Commandant of Renyong and gave me a lot of silk cloth. Silk cloth could be used as currency in this era. Han Yushi opened her eyes wide and said with a face full of surprise, His Majesty gave you an official position? Haha. Iron Egg, you've finally grown up. You're finally promising. If Dad knew, he would definitely be happy for you. Iron Egg said excitedly, Sister, not only did His Majesty give me an official position, he also pardoned Papa's crime of desertion. His Majesty said that there was a reason for what happened back then. Papa was a righteous man, so His Majesty gave Papa the rank of 6th rank Deputy Captain of Zhaowu. The grievances that Father has suffered all these years have finally been avenged. Han Yushi was stunned. She said in disbelief, What? His Majesty had pardoned Papa's crime of desertion and even bestowed Papa with an official position? Iron Egg, is this true? If that's really the case, Then I'll send a letter to father today to tell him the good news. As his daughter, Han Yushi knew the bitterness in Han Tianhu's heart all these years. Now that she suddenly heard that Han Tianhu's grievances were cleared and he was unexpectedly rewarded with an official position, her heart was immediately filled with joy. Ahem. Of course it's true. I say, wife, if you too want to reminisce, why don't you go inside and slowly reminisce? You don't have to rush anyway, right? Li Zixuan, who was standing at the courtyard door, saw that the two siblings in the courtyard were about to have a long conversation and quickly interrupted them. As for Li Yu, who came back with them, she had already gotten off the carriage at the foot of Yunshan Mountain. Although Li Zixuan had prepared a celebratory banquet for her in the evening, it was only noon. She had come all the way back, so her colleagues in the editorial department were all worried about her. Husband, you're back too? Han Yushi seemed to have woken up from a dream, but she regretted it as soon as the words came out of her mouth. Li Zixuan was speechless. He suddenly felt like he was hit by 10,000 points of critical damage. It turned out that he had been standing at the courtyard door for a long time, and his wife didn't even notice. He couldn't help but say sourly, "Ahem. That's fine. Since my wife thinks that I'm back too early, then I'll go out for a walk again." After saying that, this fellow really turned around and prepared to go out. Han Yushi quickly came over to stop him. She looked at him unhappily and said, "Husband, it was a slip of the tongue. Why are you still so angry? Iron Egg followed the army for more than half a month. I just... Ha. My wife, you don't have to explain, I understand. Ha. Stop fooling around, let's go back to the house and talk. Don't let others see us as a joke." Li Zixuan didn't mean to be angry with his wife. Hearing this, he laughed and turned around to pull his wife into the house. On the opposite side, Lan had already started arguing with Iron Egg. "Iron Egg, is it fun to fight a war?" "It's not fun, people will die in war." "Oh. Then is there any fun place in Zhengzhou?" "Oh, other than many Buddhist temples there doesn't seem to be any fun places." "Then did you meet any great masters in this war? How was it? Are they powerful? Are they as powerful as my brother?" "Iron Egg. If they were more powerful than my master, would I still be alive and standing in front of you now?" The army returned in triumph. The victorious side was naturally happy, while the defeated side was disheartened and dejected. The Tang imperial court used this war to prove that its fangs were still sharp, and even stronger than before. Those forces that were secretly waiting for an opportunity to stir up trouble were now hiding in dark corners, trembling. They had to re-evaluate the imperial court's strength. Celestial lamp, telescope, and now a telegraph. The imperial court's army is getting more and more powerful. Chang and City, Yanshou Square, in a house. Feng Jidai stood on the red attic, looking at the houses in the distance and sighing. "Young master, the current emperor was able to eliminate the Cui family of Qinghe, the Zheng family of Xinjiang, and the Cui family of Bowling in less than half a month. The imperial court's strength is indeed much stronger than 2 years ago. But why did the imperial court suddenly become so powerful for no reason? I really can't figure it out." Feng Jidai's guard, Amu, couldn't help but say. Feng Jidai sneered and said, 2 years ago, Xieli Khan led the army to Chang'an City, and the emperor emptied the Chang'an treasury in exchange for a temporary peace. Since then, the imperial court had no money and no food, and its strength was naturally not as strong as before. But since last year, Li Zixuan encouraged the emperor to send a fleet to the south for sea trade, and then the imperial court set up a department of shipping in the Guangdong coastal area to trade with the Nanyang countries. It could be said that the imperial court made a lot of money. Now the imperial court doesn't lack money or food, and the annual income from sea trade is even comparable to the tax income of the previous 5 years. Plus, the imperial court doesn't lack good soldiers at all, so how can it not be strong? The The three aristocratic families were also unlucky to choose to go against the imperial court at this time. No doubt they were digging their own graves. Not to mention, in this war, Li Zishuan's celestial lamp and telescope foresight, as well as the telegraph from thousands of miles away. The imperial court's army is like a tiger with wings. How can the aristocratic families fight against it? Now, in the whole world, I'm afraid only the Turks, Goryeo, and Tibetans can fight against the imperial court of the Tang Empire. The guard's expression changed, and he hesitated. Then, young master, will our Lingnan also completely submit to the imperial court? Feng Zhidai nodded and said, after the emperor destroyed the three aristocratic families with a thunderous force, the other aristocratic families will definitely not dare to do anything. The Tang Empire's territory is basically completely stable, and the imperial court's next target is the Turks in the north. The Tang Empire's edge is getting stronger and stronger, and with the current state, the chances of winning against the Turks are very high. When the Turks are destroyed, it's probably time for Father to completely hand over the military power of Lingnan, otherwise. At this point, Feng Zhidai didn't continue speaking, but everyone understood what he meant. The guard didn't understand and said, young master, the imperial court of the Tang Empire is indeed tyrannical, but the Turks are known to have millions of soldiers controlling the strings. Once the war starts, I'm afraid the outcome will be difficult to predict, right? Feng Zhidai looked towards the cloud mountains in the east and said faintly, although the Turks are strong with Li Zishuan, the Tang Empire's army will only be stronger. 121, 121, 121, 1234. The next day, after Li Zishuan woke up, he was practicing his sword in the front yard when he heard the sound of orderly footsteps and chants from outside the yard. His heart skipped a beat and he walked out of the yard. Looking in the direction of the sound, he saw Pang Feiji leading a few dozen soldiers running over from the mountain path not far away. When Li Zishuan saw this, he couldn't help but mutter in his heart. What was wrong with Pang Feiji? Why did he suddenly become so diligent? Coincidentally, Pang Feiji also saw Li Zishuan, so he quickly increased his speed and ran over. In a short while, he was in front of Li Zishuan. He clasped his fist and bowed to Li Zishuan. Marquis, good morning. His voice was full of vigor and vitality. Li Zishuan was stunned and asked, spring is here? The subtext was that spring was here, and it was time to XX? Pang Feiji was instantly stunned. Ah? Marquis? What spring is here? Hasn't spring been here for a long time? Facing such a humorless subordinate, Li Zishuan couldn't help but roll his eyes and then said unhappily, I'm saying what's wrong with you today, why are you leading people to train so early? Marquis, you're talking about this. Pang Feiji scratched his head, gave a silly laugh, and replied, this time when your subordinate was following the army, I saw a few of the great general's soldiers. Even if they were fighting outside, they would still persevere in their training every morning. Your subordinate thought, ever since we brothers of the Wu Ho government followed you, Marquis, we have been slacking in our training. But you, Marquis, have always been so kind to our brothers. Your subordinate is really ashamed, so I thought, from today onwards I will turn over a new leaf, and become a new person. We must also persevere in our training every morning, this way we can better protect Marquis. After hearing this, Li Zishuan couldn't help but widen his eyes, as if it was the first day he met Pang Feiji. He seriously looked at this guy and said with a smile, ah, I didn't know that a non-gay like you would have this kind of awareness. Pang Feiji immediately straightened his back, and said loudly with a serious face, as Marquis's personal guard, of course we have to train hard. If not, when Marquis is in danger, how can we protect Marquis? Seeing how serious he was, Li Zishuan almost believed him, but taking the initiative to train was a good thing, as it could reduce one's laziness. He didn't want to discourage Pang Feiji's enthusiasm, so after pausing for a moment, he waved his hand and said, all right. I am very satisfied that you guys have this kind of heart. Then you guys train hard. I will go to the academy later. Yes, Marquis. After receiving Li Zixuan's affirmation, Pang Feiji shouted excitedly, then turned around and said, "Everyone listen to my orders. From here to the foot of the mountain, run another 10 rounds. 10 rounds? Boss, are you joking?" Below, there was a wave of complaints. "Brother Pang, isn't 10 rounds a little too much?" At this moment, Lu Feng happened to pass by and couldn't help but interrupt. It was fine if he didn't say anything, but once he did, Pang Feiji instantly became anxious. He shouted excitedly, "What do you mean by too much? It's not too much at all. For this rebellion in Zhengzhou, the brothers from the left and right guard camps could march hundreds of miles day and night. Why didn't they shout too much? Why didn't they say they were tired? Everyone, turn back. Start running." These words seemed to be directed at Li Zixuan's personal guards, but more like they were directed at Lu Feng. Bang bang bang. Dozens of personal guards, under Pang Feiji's lead, began their training again, sweating profusely. Li Zixuan immediately understood. It turned out that Brother Chicken was so diligent today because Lu Feng and Lu Yun's arrival made this fellow feel a sense of danger. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. Although he could see it, he didn't intend to interfere. Healthy competition was good for mutual improvement, and this was something he was happy to see. As long as these two parties didn't do anything out of line, it would be fine. After breakfast, Li Zixuan left the courtyard and walked toward the academy. Yesterday afternoon, he informed Yen Silu to gather the students at the field after breakfast. He had something to announce. Speaking of which, when he first transmigrated, he especially liked to sleep in. However, ever since he broke through to the Grandmaster realm in the second half of last year, he couldn't sleep in every morning even if he wanted to. He also seriously thought about this problem and came to a conclusion. First, there were no mobile phones or computers in ancient times. Other than hugging his wife to sleep at night, there seemed to be no other way to pass the time, so he went to bed early. Second, ever since he became a martial Dao Grandmaster, the time he needed to sleep every day became less and less. Now, he usually only needed to sleep for 4 hours a day. After sleeping for 2 hours, his mind would become extremely clear. Therefore, in the past, he would still sleep in bed in the morning, but later, he would wake up early every day to practice martial arts. He wanted to do something else, but early in the morning, he had nothing else to do except practice martial arts. Therefore, Li Zixuan had now become a hard-working martial arts maniac. Although his martial arts realm had not increased, his martial arts foundation had become even more stable. The current him was like a treasured sword with a restrained edge. On the outside, he looked simple and unadorned, but once the treasured sword was unsheathed, it would definitely be cold and threatening. When he arrived at the academy, the sun had just risen. When Emo Zhong saw Li Zixuan, he greeted him from afar and said, "Yamacho, the students have already gathered at the field. All the teachers in the academy have just gone there. You should be just in time." Li Zixuan nodded and said, "Well, I'll go there now." After that, he walked straight to the field on the left. Chapter 1350. On the sports field of Yanhuang College, the students stood in 16 square formations according to their classes. The sun had just risen, and the rays of the morning sun shone on their backs, elongating long shadows. "Hey, why do you think Yamacho called us here today? I guess they have something to announce? What is it?" "How would I know? Hey, have you heard? Meng Wenhao and Iron Egg, who went with the Imperial Army, have returned to the academy today." "Really? Of course it's true. I just saw them in the dining hall." "Wow. I heard they won the battle in Zhengzhou and were rewarded by His Majesty yesterday. That's amazing. They are indeed amazing, but they deserve the reward. After all, they exchanged their lives for merit. By the way, Did Yamacho call us here today because of this matter? Hey, that's possible. Meng Wenhao and Iron Egg are in the limelight this time. They were just rewarded by His Majesty in front of all the civil and military officials, and today they are praised by Yamacho in public. How enviable! It's useless to be envious. If it were you, would you dare to go to the battlefield? Forget about going to the battlefield. I am the only son of 3 generations in my family. My father and mother will never let me go to the battlefield. The students whispered in private, guessing the purpose of Li Zixuan calling them here today. After all, a gathering of all the teachers and students was not common. Generally, only the opening ceremony, midterm, or final exam commendation meetings would gather all the teachers and students of the academy. Wenhao, Iron Egg, tell me honestly, did Yamacho call us here to praise you? In the group of students in Class 1, Sun Zifan nudged Meng Wenhao and Iron Egg on the right and in front of him with his shoulders and asked in a low voice. Meng Wenhao tilted his head back imperceptibly and replied in a low voice, "We don't know about this. Yamacho didn't tell us about this yesterday." Ching Chumo curled his lips like a resentful wife and said pitifully, It's a pity that they didn't let me go this time. If they let me go, I might be the one who killed the enemy generals." "Hey! Yamacho is here. Yamacho is here. Be quiet." At this moment, Li Zixuan walked up to the rostrum on the west side of the sports field. The students who had been whispering a moment ago immediately quieted down. Only the sound of the wind and the chirping of the birds could be heard in the huge field. Li Zixuan was silent for a moment before speaking. A few days ago, Zhengzhou's Qinghe clan openly rebelled against the imperial court. His Majesty ordered Duke Wei to lead his troops down south to quell the rebels. I'm sure all of you have heard about this matter, right? Yes. When the students heard Li Zixuan mention this, they understood what Li Zixuan was going to say next. He was going to commend Meng Wenhao and Iron Egg for their outstanding contributions in this war. Li Zixuan nodded and continued, Cui Junchuo, the old master of the Cui family, has gone against the law and tried to instigate the people to rebel. For his own selfish desires, he even wanted to sacrifice the lives of millions of ordinary people. How sad and crazy he is! Fortunately, Li Yu, a reporter from Datong Daily, brought the news of the Cui family's rebellion back to Chang'an in time. That was why the imperial court had the chance to rush to Guan City before the Cui family arrived at Luoyang. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Speaking of Li Yu, some of you know her, but some of you don't. Although she is a girl and can't study at Yanwang College, I have always treated her as my student. People say that women are inferior to men, but speaking of Li Yu, how many of you are better than her? When the chaos of war comes, how many of you will be able to rush to the battlefield without hesitation, and not be afraid in the face of danger, wholeheartedly looking for a way to break out of the situation, and silently passing on useful information? As soon as he said this, the students were all silent, and many of them lowered their heads. If they asked themselves honestly if war broke out in the world, there would be very few of them who dared to rush to the front line. After all, they were literati, not military men. Most literati cherished their lives. Seeing this, Li Zixuan said in a deep voice, "Do you still remember what I said to you during the military training last year? As long as Yan and Huang do not die, the Han family will not be destroyed. Blood inscribed on the dagger axe, blood will never stop flowing. Do you still remember these 16 words?" Yes. Previously, when they were criticized by Li Zixuan, the students felt guilty at first, but then they were not convinced. When they heard Li Zixuan mention last year's opening ceremony, all the students' thoughts involuntarily drifted to last year's September. On the rostrum, Li Zixuan said loudly, "Since you all still remember, then shout it for me again. As long as Yan and Huang do not die, the Han family will not be destroyed. Blood engraved on the dagger axe, blood will never stop flowing." More than 600 students, hearing this, all shouted in unison. Their shouts seemed to pierce the sky and tear the earth apart. It could be described as magnificent. Under the influence of this atmosphere, the students' blood was thoroughly stimulated. Each of them looked at Li Zixuan with a determined gaze, as if they were on a pilgrimage. Good. Li Zixuan laughed and said, "These words, I hope you all can remember them for the rest of your lives. Not only do you have to remember them, but you also have to use practical actions to practice them. This time, our academy has 2 students who participated in the Zhengzhou Rebellion, and they have obtained great military merit. They are Meng Wenhao and Han Li from Class 1. In this war, although they were behind the enemy, they relied on their skillful control of the telegraph and celestial lamp to exchange information between the army and Li Yu in Guanqing County, making considerable contributions. In order to commend their contributions, yesterday, His Majesty has conferred Meng Wenhao the title of Wenlin Lang, and Han Li the title of Ren Yong Deputy Lieutenant." When this was said, the students below the stage exclaimed. They were all students of Yanhuang College, but Meng Wenhao and Iron Egg were both officials. This made most people very envious. After all, in this era, who didn't learn civil and martial arts, and sell goods to the emperor's family? In addition to Meng Wenhao and Han Li, there is also Li Tai. He is responsible for the communication between the imperial palace and the army at the front line, and his contributions are great. In the future, as long as the students of the academy have achieved great military merits, regardless of whether the imperial court rewards them or not, our academy will reward them. Depending on the merit, the reward will range from 100 to 1,000 Tang Yuan, and also a Yamacho honor medal. This is because not only did they earn honor for themselves, but they also earned honor for Yanhuang College. Therefore, I announce that the 3 students who contributed to the rebellion will each be rewarded with 300 Tang Yuan and a Yamacho honor medal. Wow! The students below the stage exclaimed again. What was the Mountain Chieftain Medal of Honor? Let's not talk about it for now, but 300 Tang Yuan was a real benefit. Logically speaking, it was not a small amount. One must know that the key person in this rebellion, Lu Rengue, was only rewarded with 100,000 copper coins in addition to his official position in the imperial court. How much was 100,000 copper coins? It was only about 100 strings of coins. However, Li Zixuan rewarded 300 Tang Yuan, which was considered a big deal. Now that we are done talking about the rewards for the 3 of them, let's talk about the rest of you. Li Zixuan saw the envious expressions of the students below the stage. He paused for a moment and said, "I know that many of you are envious of Meng Wenhao and Iron Egg for having such a good opportunity to contribute. It is a good thing that you can emulate them. A soldier who doesn't want to be a general will never be a good soldier. However, you don't have to be envious, and you don't have to be discouraged because what I am going to talk about next will give you a chance to contribute in the future. Last year, I went against the opposition of the imperial court and founded Yanhuang College. Until now, many people still don't understand what Yanhuang College is for. Actually, the purpose of Yanhuang College is very simple, and that is to benefit the world. If a worker wants to do a good job, he must first sharpen his tools. Unlike Confucianism, Yanhuang College aims to bring the most direct benefits to the people. To put it more bluntly, Yanhuang College aims to equip the Tang Dynasty's army to be even sharper. Why were Meng Wenhao and Han Li able to contribute this time? Other than having a brave and fearless heart, it was also because they had telegraphs and celestial lamp. These were all created with the knowledge of Yanhuang College. But it was simply impossible to rely on these 2 things to make the great Tang invincible. Therefore, there must be thousands of divine tools similar to telegraphs and celestial lamp. Today, I will give this task to you. I will give it a sacred name, the 100 Trump Cards Project. As the name suggests, this mission consists of 100 small missions, and the effective period of each mission is 20 years. Within these 20 years, all students of Yanhuang Academy, as long as you have a good idea, pay attention, it must be the kind that can make the Tang Empire stronger, you can come to me with your proposal. I will evaluate the practicality and feasibility of your proposal. Once your proposal is valued by me, it will be listed as one of the 100 killer projects. At that time, you can gather the strength of all the teachers and students of the Academy to complete your proposal. During this period, the Academy will provide you with all the manpower, material, and financial resources. As long as it is useful to complete the project, the Academy will support you unconditionally, no matter how much it costs. Once the project is completed, all the teachers and students who participated in the Trump Cards project will not only receive a huge reward from the Academy, I will also ask the Imperial Court for a reward. At that time, the Imperial Court will also give you a reward. It may be a promotion or a life of wealth. No matter which it is, you will be famous all over the world. In addition to your own proposals, the Academy will also regularly release some predetermined Trump Cards projects. At that time, outstanding students with excellent grades and abilities will be selected to join the Trump Cards project. Therefore, if you want to stand out, you must study hard and take every exam seriously. In short, the Trump Cards project can be a good idea for the people, such as the curved plow, or it can be a good idea for the military, such as the celestial lamp or the telegraphs. No matter what it is, since it is called a trump card, it must ensure that the Tang Dynasty is far ahead of the rest of the world in a certain aspect. Chapter 1351. A few days ago, Li Er had come to Yanhuang College to urge Li Zixuan to speed up the popularization of the telegraph in the Great Tang Army. At that time, Li Zixuan had already deeply felt the urgency in Li Er's heart. As for why Li Er was so anxious, anyone could guess it. Old Li was anxious to fight the Turks. Now that the internal factors of unrest in the Great Tang had basically been eliminated and there was a stable environment in the rear, Li Er's next goal was as clear as day: to attack the Turks and wash away the humiliation of the Wei River alliance. It was precisely for this reason that Li Er impatiently urged Li Zixuan to equip the army with the telegraph as soon as possible after seeing the huge role it played in quelling the rebellion in Guangxing. After all, in the vast grasslands, the communication between the various armies was also a considerable problem. However, the current reality was that the telegraph was still immature. The transmission power of the telegraph needed to be increased to increase the transmission distance of the telegraph. In this era where the foundation of electronic circuits was basically zero, this was undoubtedly a rather difficult project. Li Zixuan, with the knowledge in his mind and his powerful mental strength, could indeed think of a way to modify the telegraph by himself, but he didn't want to do so. Teaching students was actually like taking care of children. As parents, if they always helped their children do everything well, then their children would never truly grow up. Similarly, as a Yamacho, if he always rushed to the forefront and paved all the paths for his students, then his students would only follow the path he paved for them for their entire lives and would never discover a new path. Little did they know that all roads lead to Rome, and there would always be more than one path to success. Such students would lack a lot of subjective initiative, and in the end, they would grow up to be the same as being carved out of a mold. This wasn't what Li Zixuan wanted to see. It was precisely due to these factors that Li Zixuan came up with the 100 Trump Cards project. Firstly, it was to promote the growth of the students, and secondly, it was to promote the development of Great Tang's basic technology and develop the most advanced technology, creating even more trump cards for Great Tang. The celestial lamp and telegraph machine were just the beginning. In the future, Great Tang would have many more amazing things than celestial lamps and telegraph machines. Of course, one of the important factors that made Li Zixuan make up his mind to use the 100 trump cards was what Li Er had said last time. If this matter succeeds, I will guarantee the glory of Yanhuang College for generations to come and rest with the country. Yanhuang College had deviated from the route of Confucianism. The main reason why it could still exist in the world was that Li Zixuan had won the support of Li Er, the ruler of the Tang Empire. If this support was lost, it could be said that Yanhuang College would quickly collapse under the crusade of the world in less than a month. And the reason why Li Er valued Yanhuang College so much was because Yanhuang College could bring advanced technology and tools to Great Tang that the entire world didn't have. If Li Zixuan wanted Yanhuang College to exist in the world for a long time, he had to let Li Er see the value of Yanhuang College. Only then would Li Er do his best to support Yanhuang College. Therefore, the 100 Trump Cards project was not only a plan to strengthen the country, but also an act of survival for Yanhuang College. Only by creating more advanced technological products could the Tang Empire become stronger. Only by creating more advanced technological products could the Tang Empire become stronger. Only by doing so could the status of the Yanhuang Academy become more stable. It was so stable that no one could shake it. It was so stable that it could exist forever. On the field, after hearing Li Zixuan's grand plan, all the teachers and students were stunned. What a big deal! All the teachers and students of Yanhuang College couldn't help but be shocked by Li Zixuan's boldness and magnanimity. Even more so, they were deeply attracted by Li Zixuan's grand blueprint. As long as they could participate in the Trump Cards project, not only would they be able to receive generous rewards from the Academy, but they might even be promoted and become famous all over the world. Compared to the Imperial examination, the Trump Cards project was undoubtedly closer to them. And once it was successful, the rewards would be even greater than the Imperial examination. Most of the students couldn't help but be tempted at this moment. On the rostrum, Li Zixuan looked at the students' reactions and was very satisfied. He pondered for a moment, then continued, "A sharp blade can hurt the enemy, but it can also hurt oneself. The Trump Cards project is a divine weapon that will benefit the country. However, if this divine weapon falls into the hands of people with evil intentions, or into the hands of other countries, it will bring great trouble to Great Tang. Therefore, today, in the name of Yamacho, I announce that the Trump Cards project is Yanhuang College's top secret plan. All participants are not allowed to tell their relatives or friends about it, and they are also not allowed to disclose it to foreigners. Anyone who leaks this secret will be charged with treason and handed over to the Supreme Court for capital punishment. Moreover, those who leak this secret will become the common enemy of all the teachers and students of Yanhuang College, and everyone has the right to punish them. In order to cultivate the awareness of confidentiality among all the teachers and students of the Academy, I have formulated a book called Yanhuang College's Confidentiality Regulations. Later, the teachers of each class will distribute the regulations to each class. All students must study it seriously and implement it in their future lives and studies. From next week onwards, every Friday afternoon, the Academy will hold a secret exam for all students. The contents of the exam are all from the Yanhuang College's confidentiality regulations. The full score is 100. If you score less than 90, you will be disqualified. The secret exam will be held once every Friday, and it will be held 4 times in a row. All students must participate. Students who score less than 90 points 4 times in a row will be ordered to withdraw from the Academy. Please note that this is a mandatory requirement, and no one is allowed to be lenient. Not only will the students have to take the secret exam, but all the teachers of the Academy will also have to take the secret exam. However, the difference is that if the teachers of the Academy score less than 90 points once, they will not be allowed to participate in any teaching activities in the Academy in the future. They can be responsible for the logistics of the Academy, and they can also apply to leave the Academy. The secret exam for the teachers of the academy would be held every Saturday morning. Therefore, if you want to continue to stay in Yanhuang College, you must take the secret exam seriously. Some of you might think that I, the Yamacho of Yanhuang College, am too lenient. However, as students of Yanhuang College, you have received the most advanced engineering knowledge in the world. If you can't keep the secret, then Tang Empire will suffer a huge loss because of you leaking the secret. In the worst-case scenario, if one of you leaks the secret, it might even lead to the destruction of Tang Empire. Once a citizen of Yanhuang, forever a citizen of Yanhuang. From the first day you stepped into the gates of the Yanhuang Academy, you have shouldered the heavy responsibility of revitalizing the Tang Empire. The knowledge you have learned in the academy is immortal knowledge that others can't even dream of. If this knowledge is used well, it can make the Tang Empire stronger. But if it is passed to other countries, it can also make other countries stronger. Therefore, as students of Yanhuang College, your first priority is not how good your grades are, but to keep the secret. Leaking the secret is tantamount to treason, and the people of Yanhuang will punish you. Do you understand? Confidentiality regulations, confidentiality exam, leaking the secret is tantamount to treason. At first, the teachers and students below the stage didn't take Li Zixuan's words seriously. However, as Li Zixuan continued to speak, everyone's expression turned serious. Those who failed the exam would be expelled from the academy, and those who leaked the secret were tantamount to treason. These two punishments were too severe. After living and studying in Yanhuang College for nearly a year, it could be said that most of the students and teachers had already fallen in love with Yanhuang College and considered themselves a part of Yanhuang College. Now that a secret exam had appeared out of nowhere, if they failed, they would be expelled from the academy. How could they accept this? Understood. The teachers and students below the stage responded in unison. At this moment, everyone had made up their minds. No matter how much content there was in the Yanhuang College confidentiality regulations, they had to find time to memorize all of it. Otherwise, if they were expelled from the academy because of this, how wronged would that be? Good. Since you all understand, let's go back to class. Li Zixuan nodded and said. Hearing this, the students on the field left in order. Marquis, the Wei Nation's big brother Mountainback wants to see you. In the afternoon, not long after Li Zixuan returned from Yanhuang College, Pang Feiji came in to report. Big brother Mountainback? What is he doing here? Li Zixuan frowned and couldn't help but think of the scene when Li Daozong brought Big Brother Mountainback to visit Yanhuang College. One thing he was sure of was that Big Brother Mountainback was definitely interested in the knowledge of Yanhuang College. He wanted to steal the knowledge, and then bring it back to Wei Nation to strengthen their national strength. Li Zixuan was a transmigrator with a strong grudge against the Wei Nation. How could he allow the evil plan of the Mountainback Big Brother King to succeed? Li Zixuan was an angry youth who had a strong grudge against the Wei Nation. Therefore, when Big Brother Shanbei visited the academy last time, he was not allowed to enter the classroom other than the Confucian Classics classes of the academy. Now that this guy came to Yunshan again, Li Zixuan felt a little impatient. Tell him that I'm unwell and can't see guests. Tell him to go back. After thinking for a moment, Li Zixuan waved his hand and said. He didn't like trouble and didn't want to waste time with Big Brother Mountainback. Besides, he didn't have time now. Yes, Marquis. Pang Feiji cupped his hands and left. At the gate of the courtyard, Pang Feiji said to Big Brother Mountainback, My Marquis is unwell and can't see guests. Please come back another day. Big Brother Mountainback was disappointed. He came here today to send the beauty. How could he be willing to go back like this? In fact, according to the plan, he should have come earlier. However, the ship that Wei Nation escorted the beauty encountered a storm at sea. Many people died, including the beauties that Emperor Tugu helped him choose. Most of them died at sea. But fortunately, there were still some beauties who survived. Moreover, this beauty who survived had the noblest status and the most outstanding beauty. However, his plan to send beauties to curry favor with Li Zishuan had been delayed for a long time because of this. It wasn't until today that he finally sent the beauties over, but he didn't expect to be met with a closed door. The big brother on the mountain back hesitated for a moment, then cupped his hands and said, "Dare I ask what illness the Marquis is suffering from? I know a few famous Wei Nation doctors. If Marquis needs..." Pang Feiji secretly thought that this person did not know what was good for him. Normally, when a host said something like, "My body is unwell and it is inconvenient for me to see guests," it meant that he did not want to see guests. However, he was afraid that saying it directly would hurt people, so he used such a euphemistic way of saying it. However, the big brother on the mountain actually thought that Li Zishuan was sick and even wanted to help find a doctor. In Pang Feiji's eyes, wasn't this cursing Li Zishuan to be sick? This was outrageous. It had to be said that the Tang people were arrogant. Once people became arrogant, they would be unreasonable. If Big Brother Mountain Back could read Pang Feiji's mind, he would definitely cry out that he was wronged. Although he knew some Chinese, he didn't know much about the profound language and culture of the Chinese people. At this time, Pang Feiji's face turned cold and he said coldly, "Your Excellency, there are many famous doctors in Tang. You don't have to worry about Marquis's health. My Marquis needs to rest now. Please go back." "Hey." But Big Brother Mountain Back still wanted to say something, but he was pulled back by Yoko Ono behind him. He quickly shut his mouth. "Your Highness, it seems like the Marquis of Yong and doesn't want to see us now. Why don't we go back first, but leave the gift? When the Marquis of Yong and sees the gifts we prepared for him, he will definitely be willing to see us. We just need to go back and wait for the news. If we stay here in a stalemate, we will only annoy the Marquis of Yong and..." Yoko Ono whispered into the ear of her big brother, who was at the back of the mountain. Big Brother Mountain Back nodded to himself. He then clasped his hands at Pang Feiji and said politely, "Since the Marquis of Yong and is not seeing guests today, I will come another day. If the Marquis of Yong and needs anything, just let me know. Whatever the Wei Nation can offer, I will give it to the Marquis of Yong and goodbye." After saying that, the mountain back Big Brother King waved his hand and led his subordinates away without hesitation. His straightforward attitude made Pang Feiji have a good impression of him. "Hey, stop!" Pang Feiji suddenly felt that something was wrong. He hurriedly shouted at the back of Big Brother Mountain Back and said, "You forgot to take your carriage." Unexpectedly, Big Brother Mountain Back and his men did not stop. Instead, they walked faster and faster. They only left a sentence in the air. "In the carriage is the gift I prepared for the Marquis of Yong'an. Although the Marquis of Yong and is not seeing guests today, according to the rules of the Tang Empire, there is no way to take back a gift that has been given out. So, please accept the gift in the carriage." After saying that, Big Brother Mountain Back and his men had already disappeared from sight. "Hey, stop!" Pang Feiji was so angry that he almost cursed. From what he heard, Li Zishuan did not want to have anything to do with the people of Wei Nation. Why would he accept a gift from them? Looking at the pink-draped carriage, Pang Feiji was in a dilemma. Should he pull the gift into the courtyard for Li Zishuan? Or should he just throw it down the mountain? "Men, push this carriage down the mountain." After thinking for a long time, Pang Feiji made a decision and ordered. Chapter 1352. 2 in 1 chapter. Yes, boss. In front of the Yunshan villa, after hearing Pang Feiji's order, the guards cupped their fists and answered. Then they drove the carriage down the hill. "Help! Help!" Suddenly, a hurried cry for help came from the carriage. The person who called for help did not speak standard Chinese. It was only 3 words, but it seemed very difficult and awkward for her to say them. Pang Feiji's hearing was excellent. How could he not hear it? He was about to stop her, but the two soldiers driving the carriage were faster than him. They jumped down from the front of the carriage. Boss, there's someone in the carriage. At first, when they heard the king say that there were gifts in the carriage, they subconsciously believed him. However, when they heard a woman's voice coming from the carriage, they were immediately frightened. Pang Feiji was puzzled. His first thought was that the king had hidden an assassin in the carriage. When Li Zixuan opened the carriage and checked the gifts, the assassin would take the opportunity to attack. However, after thinking about it carefully, Pang Feiji felt that something was wrong. Assassinating Li Zixuan would not benefit the One Nation's ambassador at all. Besides, the person in the carriage was a woman. How could the One Nation's ambassador send a female assassin? Who's playing tricks on the carriage? Why don't you come down quickly? Pang Feiji put his right hand on the hilt of his sword and shouted into the carriage. General, please spare my life. I am the One Nation's princess sent by Her Majesty to marry Marquis Yong'an. The curtain of the carriage was lifted. A petite, bright-eyed woman wearing a bright red robe with a row of butterfly buttons in the middle and an orange-red pleated skirt walked out of the carriage. Looking at her attire, her style was very similar to that of women in the Central Plains. However, this kind of pleated upper robe style was quite rare. In fact, this was related to the time when Prince Shengde sent the Sui Dynasty's ambassador to the Sui Dynasty to learn Han culture and introduced it to the country. At that time, not only was there the Sui Dynasty's Confucianism, Buddhism, and official system, there was also the Han people's style of dress. In the middle of the Tang dynasty, after the Wu rulers sent a large number of envoys to the Tang dynasty, Japan actively introduced the Tang dynasty Han-style clothing. The so-called Tang-style clothing also became popular among the Japanese people. In modern Japan, the kimono was formed on the basis of the Tang dynasty clothing. The kimono was an imitation or remake of traditional Han clothing. It completely inherited the main characteristics of traditional Han clothing with wide sleeves and no buttons. Judging from the woman's face alone, she was very beautiful. All the guards were dumbfounded at first, but Pang Feiji reacted quickly. His expression changed and he said sternly, "Did you just say that you are the princess sent by the Japanese empress to marry Marquis?" Pang Feiji's words woke everyone up. These soldiers reacted one after another and quickly shifted their gazes elsewhere. The woman who came out of the carriage frowned when she heard Pang Feiji's words. It seemed that she was trying her best to understand the meaning of Pang Feiji's words. After a while, she said in her non-standard Han accent, "I am Princess Mingda of the One Nation. I am here to marry the Marquis of Yong'an. General, please go in and help me pass the message. Let me see the Marquis of Yong'an." Princess of the One Nation. Pang Feiji's expression changed greatly. This matter was not going to end well. Since the other party was the Princess of the One Nation, she represented the royal family of the One Nation. Even if Li Zixuan did not want to see the One Nation's people, he could not directly refuse to see the One Nation's princess. After all, this involved the diplomatic relations between the two countries. "You guys look after her. I will go and inform Marquis." Pang Feiji glanced at the woman in front of the carriage and ordered, then turned and walked into the courtyard. Princess of the One Nation? Marriage? In the study, after Li Zixuan heard Pang Feiji's report, he could not help but frown. He really did not expect that his brother on the mountain back would send him a woman. Moreover, it was a princess. This made things difficult for him. Let's go and have a look. Since she was the princess of the One Nation, she represented the royal family of the One Nation. Although the One Nation was now a subordinate of the Tang Empire, if he casually trampled on the dignity of the One Nation's royal family, the One Nation's royal family could not do anything to Li Zixuan. However, Many civil officials in the imperial court would accuse him of deliberately provoking the dispute between the two countries and losing the dignity of a great country. This era was so magical. Husband, this concubine heard a commotion outside. Did something happen? When Li Zixuan passed by the main hall with Pang Feiji, Han Yushi happened to come down from upstairs. The husband and wife bumped into each other. Han Yushi looked at Li Zixuan and asked. Pang Feiji secretly felt that something was wrong. The Wenation's ambassador sent a woman to Marquis. How could Marquis's wife bump into them? Wouldn't this cause a dispute in the backyard? Although it was common for men to have 3 wives and 4 concubines in this era, those families with 3 wives and 4 concubines were generally full of all kinds of open and secret struggles. After all, no woman would want her husband to have a concubine. Pang Feiji secretly prayed in his heart that the 2 people in front of him would not quarrel. Otherwise, the house would not be peaceful. As subordinates, they would definitely not have a good life in the future. Oh, wife. It seems that the Wenation's ambassador sent a woman over. I will go and send her away. Li Zixuan's expression remained the same as he smiled at Han Yushi before he spoke. Brother Chicken couldn't help but secretly sweat for Li Zixuan. Shouldn't this kind of thing be done secretly? Who would be like Li Zixuan to say it directly in front of his wife? This guy didn't know that Li Zixuan was not interested in the so-called Wenation's princess at all. After all, in Li Zixuan's plan, destroying Wenation was something that would happen sooner or later. So, he didn't want to have anything to do with Wenation at this time. Besides, in his impression, weren't the ancient Wenation's women very ugly? When Han Yushi heard this, she suddenly felt a little flustered in her heart. However, after seeing Li Zixuan's face with a clear conscience, her anxious heart immediately calmed down. Husband, I will go with you. Han Yushi mustered up her courage and said to Li Zixuan. Why? Wife, are you worried about your husband? Li Zixuan couldn't help but laugh. No, of course not. Husband, don't misunderstand, Han Yushi quickly explained, but was interrupted by Li Zixuan. Wife, you don't have to explain. Let's go out and have a look. After saying that, he took Han Yushi's hand and walked out of the house. Pang Feiji, who was behind them, saw this and breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he quickly followed them out. When they arrived outside the courtyard, Li Zixuan and Han Yushi finally saw the Wenation's princess that Pang Feiji had mentioned. They saw that the woman's beautiful hair was tied up high on both sides, revealing her white and delicate neck. Her eyelashes fluttered outwards, like a young girl slowly opening an umbrella in Jiangnan's rain town, arching into a moving arc. Her face was lightly powdered, maintaining her natural beauty, but adding a touch of charm to it. She wore a red robe and an orange pleated skirt, which added a bit of charm to the woman. Li Zixuan couldn't help but frown because the woman in front of him was dressed differently from what he had seen in Japanese period dramas in his previous life. Didn't they say that the ancient Wenation's women liked to use a thick layer of powder to make their faces look like ghosts? But the Wenation's woman in front of him was clearly dressed like the Tang Empire's women. In fact, Li Zixuan's impression of the pale white clothing did exist in Wenation's history, but it didn't exist in the current era of flying birds. It only began to appear in the later Heian era. Our people had developed all kinds of powders as early as the Shang Dynasty. In ancient times, there were mainly 2 types of powders used by women. One was the natural powder that was made by soaking rice and repeatedly grinding it, precipitating and filtering it. The other was the poisonous and harmful metal lead powder. However, it was said that lead powder was clearer than natural white powder. So, in order to be beautiful, the ancient women walked the path of self-destruction without hesitation. The production of lead powder was very complicated. It needed to be placed in a wooden bucket and placed on a magnetic pot filled with diluted acetic acid. Then, it needed to be slowly heated with charcoal so that the lead would be affected by the acetic acid vapor and undergo various chemical changes to become lead powder. Therefore, Japan, which was technologically backward at that time, had never been able to develop lead powder for makeup and could only rely on imports. It wasn't until 692 AD that Dorai monk Guanqing successfully produced lead powder in Japan. This scientific research achievement was greatly praised by the Empress and the Emperor. As a result, Wenatian's women gradually became popular with a new kind of clothing. They would shave all their eyebrows, paint their teeth black, and cover their faces with white powder. It sounded a bit like a dead person's clothing, but Japanese men liked this style. You must be the Marquis of Yong'an. Wenatian's Princess Mingda Suo Shimu greets the Marquis of Yong'an. From now on, you are Shimu's husband. The Wenatian's woman saw that although Li Zixuan was dressed in ordinary clothes, his dignified aura showed that he had been in a high position for a long time. So, she quickly walked over and bowed. Han Yushi's expression changed. Li Zixuan squeezed his wife's hand, then looked at Su Washimu and asked, "You are Su Washimu? Or the Wenatian's royal princess? What does Su Washai have to do with you?" When Li Xiaogong was fighting with Wenatian, Li Zixuan also took the opportunity to learn about the current situation in Wenatian. He knew that the Suwa family was the top family in Wenatian, and now only the top families in Wenatian had surnames. Ordinary people generally only had names, not surnames. So, when he heard the woman in front of him called Su Washimu, Li Zixuan thought of Su Washi, who had been killed by Li Xiaogong. A trace of fear flashed in Su Washimu's eyes. After a while, she replied, "Su Washai is my brother. Marquis Yong'an, do you know him?" Sure enough, the Suwa family's people could be said to have the blood of the Wenatian's royal family flowing in their veins. With the power of Su Washai in the Wenatian's imperial court, wouldn't it be easy for the empress to make her daughter a princess? Li Zixuan nodded and said, "Your brother died in the hands of the Tang Empire's army. Don't you hate the Tangs?" "No, no, no." I, Shimu, quickly shook my head and said, "My elder brother is a devil. He deserved to die. Shimu will not hate anyone." When everyone heard this, a wave of doubt arose in their hearts. Li Zixuan didn't bother to pay attention to the complicated relationship within the Suwa family. He looked at Su Washimu and asked, "Your Highness, since the Wenatian's empress wants to marry you, please submit a letter of credence to the Tang Empire first. Only with His Majesty's permission can the marriage be arranged. Besides, I'm not a member of the royal family. Even if the Wenatian's empress wants to marry the Tang Empire, she shouldn't look for me. So, Princess Mingda, please go back. I'll send someone to send you back to the post house." Su Washimu was not ugly. On the contrary, she was very beautiful. This really surprised Li Zixuan, but he wasn't the kind of hothead who would be hot-blooded and reckless when he saw a beautiful woman. There was no free lunch in the world. The mountain-back elder brother sent the Wenatian's princess to him, so he must have a request. If he accepted this woman, he wouldn't be able to refuse the next time the mountain-back elder brother made a request. Besides, he was a marquis outside the royal family. If he married a foreign princess without permission, wouldn't he be tired of living? As long as he dared to accept Su Washimu, there would be a lot of memorials to impeach him in the imperial court in a few days. Hearing this, Su Washimu's face turned as pale as paper. She knelt in front of Li Zixuan and said with tears in her eyes, "Your Excellency Duke Yong'an, please accept me." Actually, Shimu is a princess who has just been deposed. This time, she was ordered by our country's crown prince to wander thousands of miles on the sea and narrowly escaped death to come to the Tang Empire. If I can't marry you, after returning to Wenatian, Shimu will be sent to the army by the Empress. Shimu will live a life worse than death. Your Excellency Duke Yong'an, please accept Shimu. It turned out that she was a has-been Wenatian's princess. Needless to say, her weeping and pitiful appearance really moved many people. Even though Li Zixuan had a firm mind, he couldn't help but feel a little touched in his heart. However, he didn't intend to change his decision. Husband, she's quite pitiful. Why don't we take her in? Just as Li Zixuan was about to refuse, Han Yushi begged for mercy. This girl was kind by nature. After hearing Su Washimu's complaints, her heart immediately softened, because if she was sent to the army, she would basically be a military prostitute. Li Zixuan heard this and looked at his wife speechlessly. He thought to himself, "Wife, are you mistaken? This girl in front of you is trying to snatch your husband. If you take her in, aren't you inviting a wolf into your house? Madame Marquis, you're Madame Marquis, right? You're beautiful and kind. Please accept Shimu. Shimu won't compete with you for favor. Shimu can do any kind of hard work. Please don't let Duke Yong and send Shimu back." Seeing Han Yushi pleading with Li Zixuan, Su Washimu immediately grasped this slim chance of survival and quickly kowtowed to Han Yushi to beg. Hearing Su Washimu's pitiful words, Han Yushi's heart softened. She tugged at Li Zixuan's arm, her eyes filled with pity. Li Zixuan waved his hand and said, "Wife, you don't have to persuade me anymore. Your husband has his own plans." Chapter 1353. Miss Yamu, I'm not related to you in any way. Your life or death has nothing to do with me. Now that I have a family, I won't marry anyone else, much less a foreign woman. So you'd better go back. Come on, send Miss Shimu to the One Nation's emissary group. Outside the Yunshan residence, Li Zixuan turned to look at Su Washimu and said coldly after comforting Han Yushi. Han Yushi was stunned. Just as she was about to plead for mercy, Li Zixuan waved his hand to stop her. She suddenly felt a little upset in her heart, but when she thought that once Li Zixuan decided on something, even 10 horses couldn't pull him back, she shut her mouth and stopped trying to persuade him. She turned to look at Su Wa and Xiaomu with sympathy. She couldn't help but start to worry about the tragic future of this Japanese woman. In fact, she wasn't the only one who felt bad. The guards of the Li family who were present couldn't help but feel their hearts sink after hearing Li Zixuan's heartless words. Although they didn't know Su Washimu before, her appearance today still gave them a good impression. It had to be said that it was easier to take advantage of a good-looking person in many ways. Su Washimu's body trembled at this moment and her face turned ashen. She kowtowed to Li Zixuan and said, "Marquis Yong'an, please take me in." "I can do anything," Li Zixuan frowned and said. "What are you waiting for? Take her away. Send her back to Honglu Temple." Pang Feiji's heart trembled. He quickly bowed and said, "Yes." After that, he went up and wanted to pull Su Washimu up from the ground. "No. Shimu doesn't want to go back." My summer eyes suddenly became agitated. While Pang Feiji was pulling her up, she suddenly struggled with strength that came from nowhere. She broke free from Pang Feiji's unguarded hands and her head directly crashed into the shaft of the carriage that was beside them. In her mind, since Li Zixuan didn't take her in, she would rather die than go back to One Nation and be tortured. Because once she was sent to the One Nation's emissary group, it would be difficult for her to die even if she wanted to. No. Han Yushi's eyes widened. Her heart felt as if it had been struck by a hammer. No, there was another person who shouted along with Han Yushi, and that was Pang Feiji. Back then, old Pang had also been on the battlefield and killed countless people. At this moment, when he saw that Su Meimu was about to die in front of him, his iron heart suddenly felt an inexplicable pain. Su Waxia's actions were too sudden. Almost no one had time to react. Of course, the main reason was that no one had expected this woman to be so unyielding. Whoosh! Seeing that Su Waxiamu was about to crash into the shaft of the carriage, with her speed, she would definitely lose her life on the spot. At this critical moment, Li Zixuan used the orchid butterfly steps and suddenly disappeared from his original position. In the next moment, he had already appeared beside the carriage. He lightly slapped the carriage with his palm, and with a pring sound, the carriage actually moved 10 steps away, leaving behind a large wheel mark on the ground. Without the carriage, Sumo Summer I naturally relied on her body's inertia and fell heavily to the ground. Although the fall wasn't fatal, the sharp pain from her body made her unable to help but frown deeply. She couldn't get up from the ground for a long time. Miss Shimu, what is the meaning of this? Li Zixuan looked at Su Wuxia on the ground and said coldly. Although this woman's life and death had nothing to do with him, he didn't want to see this woman die in front of his own house. Since the Marquis of Yong doesn't want to take me in, I will live a life worse than death when I go back. Why don't I just die now? At least it will be easier. Su Wuxia raised her head and looked at Li Zixuan as she said this. Although her voice was weak, it was incomparably firm. Everyone could feel the will to die in her heart at this moment. Li Zixuan's expression didn't change. He coldly snorted and said, "Humph. You can die if you want, but you can't die in Yinshan. Feiji, go knock her out and send her back to the Wei Nation's diplomatic corps." Pang Feiji's eyes revealed a trace of reluctance. He gritted his teeth and went forward with cupped fists and said, "Marquis, your subordinate boldly hopes that Marquis can take Miss Shimu in. Since she is a Wei Nation's princess who has been deposed, you can." "Shut up!" Li Zixuan shouted loudly, interrupting Pang Feiji's pleading. Then, he took a big step forward and came in front of Su Wuxiamu. Before the latter could react, he chopped Su Wuxiamu's neck with his hand. Su Wuxiamu instantly fainted in despair and unwillingness. Li Zixuan turned around and looked at Pang Feiji. He said coldly, "You are getting bolder and bolder. You dare to disobey my orders?" Seeing that Li Zixuan was angry, Pang Feiji's face was instantly covered in sweat. He quickly knelt on one knee and cupped his fist. "Your subordinate doesn't dare. Please forgive me, Marquis." "Humph. Then why are you still standing there? Hurry up and send her back to Honglu Temple." Li Zixuan glared at Pang Feiji and said, "Yes." Pang Feiji felt helpless and could only accept the order with cupped fists. Getting up from the ground, Pang Feiji ordered people to carry the unconscious Su Wuxiamu to the carriage. Then, he jumped on the carriage and prepared to drive the carriage down the mountain. "Wait," Li Zixuan suddenly said. Pang Feiji was overjoyed. He thought that Li Zixuan had changed his mind. He quickly jumped off the carriage and walked quickly to Li Zixuan's side. He bowed and said, "Marquis, do you have any other orders?" Unexpectedly, Li Zixuan waved his hand coldly and said, "Follow me." Under the puzzled gaze of Han Yushi and the others, Li Zixuan led Pang Feiji to an old locust tree that was dozens of feet away. Li Zixuan was silent for a moment and said, "Feiji, today is the first time you have disobeyed my orders. Moreover, it is because of a Japanese woman." Pang Feiji thought that Li Zixuan was going to chase him away because of this matter. He quickly bowed and said, "Marquis, I know my mistake. Please give me another chance, Marquis." Li Zixuan shook his head and said, "This Su Xiamu is indeed a pitiful person. This Marquis doesn't blame you for having a compassionate heart. This Marquis isn't an unreasonable person. In a moment, send her to the Honglu Temple and hand her over to my brother on the mountain. As for what happens afterwards, if you are interested in this girl and are really willing to save her, then don't come back tonight. Act according to the circumstances. If you are not interested in this girl, then directly come back after sending her off." Pang Feiji was shocked. He was about to explain when Li Zixuan waved his hand and said, "You don't have to explain. You decide what to do. The most important thing in life is not to regret. Go." After that, Li Zixuan directly left with his hands behind his back and brought Han Yushi back to the courtyard. Pang Feiji was stunned and his expression kept changing. After a long time, he knelt down in the direction of the courtyard and kowtowed. He said in a low voice, "Thank you, Marquis. For the rest of my life, Feiji will go through water and tread on fire for Marquis. I will not hesitate to die 1,000 times. A horse carriage came down from the cloud mountain. Behind the horse carriage were more than 10 soldiers. The group of people faced the setting sun and rushed in the direction of Chang'an. In the courtyard of the cloud mountain, Han Yushi came to the study and saw Li Zixuan reading in the study. She wanted to say something but stopped. In the end, she could not hold back and said, "Husband, why did you?" Li Zixuan smiled and looked up. He said, "My wife wants to ask why your husband is so heartless and cold-blooded?" "Husband, that's not what I meant." Han Yushi quickly shook her head. Li Zixuan pulled his wife to sit on his lap. He hugged Han Yushi's waist from behind and said, "My wife, I'm not interested in other women. I'm even less interested in women from Japan. It's enough for me to have you in my life." Han Yushi was very touched. She turned her head and looked at Li Zixuan with great affection. She said, "My husband Yushi can die without regrets if you treat me like this. But now that you're a marquis, it's normal for you to have multiple wives. I don't want to be a jealous woman and make you a laughing stock." Today's incident made her realize a very serious problem. Li Zixuan's identity was not just a rich young master. He was the new noble of the Tang Empire and the founder of the country, Marquis. His identity was prominent. Which person with such a prominent identity did not have multiple wives and concubines? So in the end, she helped Su-ai Xiamu to plead with Li Zixuan. Wasn't that a kind of compromise? Li Zixuan heard this and pinched Han Yushi's beautiful face. He was both angry and amused. Then, he said, having multiple wives is just to seek temporary physical pleasure. What your husband values more is to have a heart-to-heart. Like now, when your husband is hungry, even if I don't say it, my wife can make delicious food for your husband in time. When your husband is worried, you can feel my worries and do your best to enlighten me. Your husband is busy with government affairs and has no time to care about other things. My wife, you can help your husband take care of everything in the family and do your best to be filial to your parent. You can solve all your husband's worries. Isn't this kind of tacit understanding from the heart more profound than the physical pleasure? Being half sober, half drunk, and half floating in the air is what your husband wants in life. A couple for life, half awake, half drunk, half alive? Han Yushi was stunned for a moment. For a woman in ancient times, there was no more moving words of love in the world than this. She choked with tears in her eyes and said, "Husband." Li Zixuan patted Han Yushi's back and said with a smile, Okay. My wife, don't be so sentimental. Actually, with your husband's identity, it's not suitable to marry Su-ai Xiamu. Now, Yanwang College has become a powerful treasure in the eyes of His Majesty. As the Yamacho of Yanwang College, I keep asking the teachers and students in the college to keep the college's secret, but I marry a foreign woman. How is that appropriate? Han Yushi nodded thoughtfully and said, "But husband, even if you don't marry Su-ai Xiamu, you can still take her in as a servant in the mansion. Otherwise, if she is sent back to Japan, how miserable will her fate be?" Li Zixuan shook his head and said, "My wife, you are too naive. Su-ai Xiamu is definitely harmful to your husband. Why should I take her in? I can't put myself in danger for a foreign woman who has nothing to do with me. Moreover, there are millions of pitiful people in the world. If I have to save everyone, I can't save all of them. However, Su-ai Xiamu is not completely useless. If the person who thinks she is useful is willing to save her, she may still have a chance to live." Chang'an City, in a courtyard of Honglu Temple. Pang Feiji came to the courtyard where the Japanese emissaries were staying with Su-ai Xiamu, who was in a coma. "General Pang? Why are you here? Didn't we just meet? Did Marquis Yong and change his mind?" The big brother Wang on the back of the mountain heard the news and came out to welcome them. When he saw Pang Feiji, he immediately smiled. He thought that Li Zixuan was very satisfied with the gift he gave, so he changed his attitude. Pang Feiji said expressionlessly, "It was Marquis who sent me to bring back the woman you left behind on Yunshan Mountain. Now that woman is in the carriage behind. Marquis also asked me to pass a message to you." The big brother Wang on the back of the mountain changed his expression and said in a low voice, "Please speak." Pang Feiji moved his lips and said, "Marquis said that he has no love for foreign women. Please don't waste your time in the future." Being refuted like this, the big brother Wang on the back of the mountain was a little embarrassed. However, when he thought of the huge gap between Japan and the Tang Empire, even if he was angry, he still suppressed it. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your reminder, General Pang. This time I thought I was smart. Please pass on my apology to Marquis Yong-un." Pang Feiji nodded. At this time, the two Japanese warriors under the big brother Wang's command had already boarded the carriage and carried Su Wamu down. The big brother Wang on the back of the mountain looked at the unconscious Su Wamu and suddenly asked in confusion, "General Pang, what is the meaning of this?" Pang Feiji replied coldly, "After your princess found out that Marquis was unwilling to take her in, she would rather die than return to Japan. In order to prevent any accidents on the way, we had to knock her out and send her to you." The big brother Wang on the back of the mountain couldn't help but secretly feel angry that Su Wamu didn't know how to appreciate kindness. She was a disgrace to the Japanese. After sorting out his feelings, he cupped his hands and said to Pang Feiji, "Thank you, General Pang. Our princess was rude and made a fool of herself in front of Marquis Yong-un." Hearing this, Pang Feiji said meaningfully, "My Marquis didn't make a fool of you. He just felt that the way you treated the princess was very bad." The big brother Wang on the back of the mountain couldn't help but say, "Thank you for your kind reminder, Marquis Yong-un. However, this is a matter of Japan. Her Majesty will take care of it." "I hope so." Pang Feiji could hear the anger in the big brother Wang's words. He didn't give the other party any face. He snorted and left with his men. "Your Highness, what should we do with Su Wamu? Should I send someone to dress her up and send her to your room tonight?" Yoko Ono stood behind the big brother Wang on the back of the mountain and bowed carefully. In his opinion, since Li Zixuan didn't want Su Washimu, there was only one outcome for Su Washimu. Instead of that, it was better to let his brother enjoy him before he was sent back to Neon. Lock her up and send her back to Japan tomorrow for Her Majesty to deal with," the big brother Wang on the back of the mountain said angrily, and went straight into the room. He only had the advanced knowledge and technology of Yenhuang College in his mind. He didn't have time to think about these things. Chapter 1354. 2 in 1 chapter. "Boss, are we not going back?" Outside Honglu Temple, Pang Feiji came out with his men. However, they were not in a hurry to leave Chang'an City. Instead, they stayed in an inn not far from Honglu Temple. His men, Xiongde and Xiong-er, were puzzled. "The city gate is about to close. It's too late for us to go back now. Let's stay here tonight." Before Marquis left, he told me that if we can't make it back in time, we'll stay in the city for the night. Pang Feiji said with an unnatural expression. The last words he said to the mountain-back big brother king at the Honglu Temple were actually said under Li Zixuan's name. His goal was to make the mountain-back big brother king spare Su Waxiamu. This way, he wouldn't have to take the risk tonight. However, from the mountain-back big brother's merciless reply, Pang Feiji knew that this matter could not be settled peacefully. When he thought of how Xiamu would be treated when he returned to Neon, his heart ached. Therefore, he decided to stay. Xiongde and Xiong-er did not doubt him. They nodded and followed Pang Feiji into the inn. As night fell, the people in Chang'an City returned to their homes. There was no one on the streets except for the Marquis patrolling the street. Creek. In the inn opposite the Chamberlain of Dependencies, the window of one of the rooms was opened. A black shadow flew down from the window, and then sneakily made its way to the Chamberlain of Dependencies across the street. Suddenly, a big hand touched the shoulder of the black shadow from behind. The black shadow was shocked, and was about to resist when he heard a voice behind him. "Boss, don't fight. It's me. Xiongda? Why are you guys not sleeping in the inn? Why are you out in the middle of the night?" The black shadow turned around and looked at the people behind him. He could not help but be surprised. Needless to say, the man in black was Pang Feiji. The people behind him were the guards of the Li family who had entered the city with him. Pang Feiji thought that this trip to Honglu Temple was for his own personal matters, so he did not plan to bring these men. He did not expect Xiongde and the others to follow him. "Boss, are you going to Honglu Temple to save the Neon Princess?" "We'll go with you," Big Xiong said in a low voice. There was a hint of excitement in his words. He thought that the task of rescuing the Wei Nation's princess had been given to him by Li Zixuan. Pang Feiji pursed his lips and said, "This matter was not ordered by Marquis. I wanted to do it myself. It has nothing to do with you. Xiongda, you should go back quickly. Pretend that you didn't see me tonight." Big Xiong was stunned. Obviously, he didn't expect this. After a moment of silence, Big Xiong said, "Boss, your business is our business. Besides, that Wei Nation's princess is quite pitiful. If you want to save her, how can we just stand by and watch? Let's go together. When Marquis blames us, we'll be punished together. Yes. Let's go together." As soon as Big Xiong finished speaking, the dozen sergeants around him quickly lowered their voices and echoed. When they were in the right Marquis mansion, they had all followed Pang Feiji. Now, even though they had been assigned to the Li family by Lier, Pang Feiji had always taken good care of them. Usually, he would treat his subordinates the same way he treated himself. He would never give them any special treatment. This made Big Xiong and the others respect him very much. Therefore, at this moment, although everyone knew that rescuing Su and Shemu was Pang Feiji's personal action, they all wanted to join in without hesitation. Pang Feiji patted Big Xiong's shoulder and looked at the crowd. For a long time, he was speechless. In the end, he only said 3 words, "Good brothers." "Hey, boss, listen to what you're saying. We all know how you treat us. Now that you're in trouble, how can we just stand by and watch? Boss, just tell us, what are you going to do tonight? Although there are no guards in Honglu Temple, I think there are a few masters in the Wei Nation's envoy group." Big Xiong chuckled and said. Pang Feiji pondered for a moment and said, "I was going to sneak in alone and act according to the situation. Now that you're willing to follow me, it's even easier. Juanheng, give me some sleeping gas." A skinny middle-aged man behind Big Xiong opened his mouth and said, "Boss, what sleeping gas? Why would I have sleeping gas?" This person was called Lu Juanheng. In his early years, he was a gangster in the Jianghu. When the world was in chaos and bandits were everywhere, he had done all kinds of things. However, he was not a bad person and was very loyal. He had joined the army with Pang Feiji. However, because of the Jianghu aura on him, he had not been promoted. However, this guy was happy and content. Pang Feiji laughed and said with a face of disbelief, "Haha, don't try to hide it from me. If you don't give me the sleeping gas, be careful that I'll find all the golden gun, uncollapsing pill, and celestial desire powder on you and throw them away." After saying that, he made a move to capture Lu Juanheng. Lu Juanheng quickly waved his hand and said, Don't. Boss, please be merciful. Don't throw them away, don't throw them away. These are all treasures. Sleeping gas, oh right. Don't you have sleeping gas? I'll give it to you." After saying that, Lu Juanheng took out a package from his chest and took out 2 sleeping gas from some bottles and jars in the package. He handed them to Pang Feiji and said, "Boss, this is strong. Boss, this thing is very strong. After you light it up, you must stand in the lee of the wind." Otherwise you will faint. Humph. Do I need you to teach me this? Pang Feiji took the sleeping gas and glared at Lu Juanheng. He then said, later, Big Xiong, and Big Xiong will sneak into the courtyard where the Wei Nation's ambassadors are staying. After we find the location where Su Wuxia is being held, I'll light the sleeping gas to knock out the Wei Nation's guards and rescue him. The rest of you will support from the outside. If there's an accident, immediately set the place on fire to attract the attention of the Wei Nation's ambassadors. Yes, boss. Everyone replied in a low voice. Pang Feiji thought for a moment and added, try not to kill anyone and not to make a big deal out of this. After we rescue him, we'll leave. Everyone, cover your faces with black cloth so that no one can recognize us. If we're caught, blame it on me and not Marquis. Remember, this is the Tang Empire. Even if the Wei Nation catches us, they won't dare to do anything to us. However, we can't smear Marquis's name and let the other officials use this to attack Marquis. Yes. Where is Su Wuxia being held? At night, Yoko Ono walked out of her room and asked a guard. My lord, Princess Mingda is being held in the woodshed. I'll go take a look at this bitch to prevent her from committing suicide. You stay here and guard. If His Highness comes, send someone to inform me immediately. Yoko Ono nodded and ordered the guard. Then, with her hands behind her back, she calmly walked towards the woodshed. Isn't he just trying to take over Princess Mingda? What a pity! Our Wei Nation's most beautiful woman is being taken advantage of by this old pervert. The guard looked at Yoko Ono's back as he curled his lips and muttered softly. What he didn't notice was that on the roof behind him, there was a black shadow that witnessed everything. Cough cough. All of you leave. I have something to discuss with Princess Mingda. Without my orders, no one is allowed to enter. Yoko Ono came to the woodshed and ordered the guard at the door. Yes, my lord. Everyone knew that Yoko Ono was favored by the king of Mountain Back. These guards naturally didn't dare to disobey her orders. Yoko Ono laughed sinisterly and pushed the door open. Inside the woodshed, Su Wuxia's hands and feet were tied and her mouth was gagged with a piece of cloth. This was to prevent her from biting her tongue to commit suicide. Her messy hair was scattered on her beautiful face, and it only served to arouse Yoko Ono's beast desires. Princess, oh right, you're not a princess anymore. Su Wuxia's family has been destroyed and you're just a deposed princess. TSK. Look at those servants who don't know any better. They actually tied you up so tightly. Let me, Yoko Ono, take care of you. Yoko Ono took off her clothes and looked at Su Wuxia, who was tied up on the floor with a lewd smile. Before Li Shaogong attacked Wei Nation last year, Su Wuxia's family was one of the top wealthy families in Wei Nation. At that time, Su Wuxia's eldest daughter was known as Wei Nation's most beautiful woman. She attracted thousands of men to chase after her. Although Su Wuxia's second daughter was also very beautiful, she didn't seem that outstanding when compared to her elder sister. However, Su Wuxia couldn't stand the humiliation of Su Wuxia and committed suicide. Su Wuxia naturally became Wei Nation's most beautiful woman. After that, Li Shaogong led the army and destroyed all the men in Su Wuxia's family. Su Wuxia lost the support of her family and could only become the plaything of the rich and powerful in Feiniao City. After all, she was the young miss of Su Wuxia's family, and there were still many rich and powerful people who wanted to take her into their palace. Yoko Ono had always been drooling over Su Wuxia's beauty. However, he knew that his status wasn't high enough and could only fantasize about it in private. Just when the rich and powerful in Feiniao City were preparing to fight for Su Wuxia, Queen Gu remembered Su Wuxia's help in ascending the throne and summoned Su Wuxia into the palace. However, Big Brother Shanbei was the archenemy of Su Wuxia's family. Although Su Wuxia's family was destroyed, he still didn't want the women in Su Wuxia's family to have a good life. Thus, under his suggestion, Su Wuxia was sent to Tang Dynasty and took on this mission that was worse than death. Woo! Woo woo woo! Su Wuxia saw Yoko Ono taking off her clothes and revealing her ugly body. She was so frightened that she quickly moved her body back and cried for help. However, her mouth was gagged with a piece of cloth and she could only make woo 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 sounds. The light from the lanterns and torches shone through the window into the woodshed. Yoko Ono's face turned sinister and twisted. He pointed at the center of his head, where there was a bald patch, and said to Sumo Natsum, "I'm sorry. Hey, do you know how the scar on my head came about? It's all thanks to your Su Wuxia's warriors. Today, I'll let Su Wuxia's second Missy have a taste of my Yoko Ono's prowess." Back then, when Li Shaogong was attacked by the Suo family's warriors outside Flying Bird City, Yoko Ono was right beside Li Shaogong. In the end, he was caught in the crossfire. The Suo family's warriors sliced off a large piece of his scalp. From then on, he became a complete bald man. Today's actions gave Yoko Ono a sense of satisfaction from her revenge. After saying that, he pounced towards Su Wuxia naked. Woo! Su Wuxia's eyes widened in fear as she struggled with her bound limbs, wanting to push Yoko Ono away. However, she was only a weak girl. How could she fight against a grown man? On the contrary, the more she struggled, the more excited Yoko Ono became. Shout. Even if you break your throat tonight, no one will come and save you. Yoko Ono laughed sinisterly and wanted to use his hands to tear Su Wuxia's clothes. Bastard! At this moment the door to the woodshed was pushed open. Before Yoko Ono could react, the back of his neck was attacked by a hard object and he fainted unwillingly. Shwa shwa, the ropes on Su Wuxia's hands and feet were cut open. The black shadow that knocked Yoko Ono out pulled her up from the ground and said, "Miss Su Wuxia, don't make a sound. I'll bring you away." Mandarin. He actually spoke Mandarin. Su Wuxia's eyes widened. Although there were still tears in her eyes, one could still see the surprise in her eyes. "Did Marquis Yong and send you to save me?" The black shadow said in a low voice. "No. Cut the crap and come with me." After saying that, the black shadow sealed one of Su Wuxia's acupoints so that she could not make a sound or move. Then, he carried Su Wuxia and walked out of the woodshed. The strange thing was that the guards outside the woodshed were all lying on the ground, as if they had fallen asleep. "Burn it!" The black shadow looked back at the woodshed and ordered. "Yes." After a while, the woodshed in the courtyard where the neon ambassadors were staying suddenly burst into flames. The black shadow and Su Wuxia were long gone. "It's on fire! It's on fire! Put out the fire! Wake up and put out the fire!" In the courtyard where the neon ambassadors were staying, there was suddenly a commotion of people putting out the fire. "Boss, where are we going?" On the streets of Chang'an City, a group of men in black was running wildly while avoiding the patrolling Marquis. Who else could it be other than Pang Feiji and his men? To Yongla Lane, back to the Marquis mansion. That place is safer than the inn. Even if the neon ambassadors dared to search the inn, they would not dare to search the Marquis' mansion. Tomorrow morning, we will use the Marquis' carriage and take Miss Su Wuxia out of the city. Pang Feiji carried Su Wuxia and said as he ran. They were from the right Marquis guards and knew the pattern and route of the Marquis' patrol at night like the back of their hand. That was why they were able to avoid wave after wave of patrolling Marquis. "Haha. Okay. Boss, I'll go in front and help you scout." Xiong laughed loudly and quickly quickened his pace, running forward. Chapter 1355. Your Highness, the fire has been put out. This matter has alarmed the officials of the Tang Empire. The minister of Honglu Temple is waiting for you in the main hall. Honglu Temple, in the courtyard where the Wanatian diplomatic mission was staying. Has the cause of the fire been determined? Were there any casualties? the mountain-back Big Brother King asked with a solemn expression. They were staying in the Honglu Temple's posthouse. Now that such a thing had happened, if there was no evidence to prove that an outsider had set the fire, they would be responsible for the fire. At that time, the compensation for the repair of the house would be a small matter, but losing face as the nation's crown prince would be a big deal. Your Highness, it is suspected that someone lit the candlestick in the woodshed. After that, the candlestick collapsed and ignited the firewood in the woodshed, causing the fire. Candlestick? Why would there be a candlestick in the woodshed? And who would light the candlestick in the woodshed at this time? The mountain-back Big Brother King asked curiously. The soldier bowed and said, "We found a charred corpse in the woodshed. The face of the corpse could no longer be seen, but we can be sure that the person who was burned to death was a man. And the person who was imprisoned in the woodshed was Princess Mingda. According to the confession of the guards outside the woodshed, Lady Yoko went to the woodshed at around 7 o'clock and sent all the guards away. After that, the woodshed caught fire. Yoko Ono. Why did she go to the woodshed?" The mountain-back Big Brother King frowned, and then thought of something. His expression was ugly as he said, "The evils we bring on ourselves are the hardest to bear. Let's not talk about him for now. You guys go find me, Shimu. I'll go see the minister of Honglu Temple." "You're saying that the Wanatian diplomatic mission sent Li Zixuan a Wanatian woman?" In the Sweet Dew Hall, Li Er frowned and asked after listening to Zhao Song's report. "Indeed. But in the evening, the Marquis of Yong had already sent the woman back to the Wanatian diplomatic mission." Zhao Song bowed and replied, "Humph. This Wanatian envoy is really restless. He really has hidden ambitions. I shouldn't have allowed them to stay in Chang'an for half a year." Li Er snorted coldly. Although he was very satisfied with Li Zixuan's action of sending the neon woman back, he was very angry that the Big Brother King of Mountain Back had so blatantly bribed an important official of the empire with his beauty, and the person he bribed was a key figure like Li Zixuan. "Your Majesty, as far as I know, a few months ago, the envoys visited Yanhuang College under the leadership of the King of Jiangxia. At that time, the Marquis of Yong only allowed them to sit in on the classes of the economics department. They were forbidden from entering the classrooms of the other departments. Therefore, this old servant reckons that the reason why the mountain-back elder brother gave the Marquis Yong a beauty is probably because he's plotting to obtain knowledge from the other departments of Yanhuang College." Zhao Song tried to analyze the situation. His relationship with Li Zixuan was relatively good. In addition, Li Er was especially concerned about Yanhuang College. Therefore, he deliberately asked people to collect more information in this regard. That was why he could analyze it so clearly and logically now. Li Er glared and said angrily, "A small country dares to covet the secrets of the Tang Empire. They really don't know what's good for them." Of course, no one dared to answer Li Er's words. The hall fell into silence for a while. After a while, Li Er's eyebrows relaxed and he smiled. "But fortunately, Li Zixuan is also a smart guy. Yesterday, he sent someone to deliver a memorial to me, saying that he wants to strengthen the management of confidentiality in the college. For this purpose, he also formulated an extremely detailed Yanhuang College confidentiality regulation. Although I haven't read 10,000 books in my life, I have at least read 1,000. However, this is the first time I've heard of this confidentiality regulation. In this confidentiality regulation, there are considerations in all aspects. Moreover, the management methods in it are quite novel and reasonable. With a little modification, it can be used in the military camp." This guy's head is full of ideas. Handing Yanhuang College over to him is the right choice. That's because Your Majesty has a good eye for talent. The Marquis of Yong could rise from a merchant's son to his current position because Your Majesty cherishes talent. The Tang Empire will definitely prosper in Your Majesty's hands. Zhao Song was all smiles as he flattered Li Erei, which made Li Erei very happy. At this moment, a chamberlain came in from outside the hall. The chamberlain hurriedly ran to Li Er's side and bowed. Your Majesty, the post house where the Japanese envoys are staying at the Honglu Temple has caught fire. It burned down a woodshed and a Japanese envoy named Yoko Ono was burned to death. The joy on Li Er's face instantly disappeared. He asked, Did someone deliberately set the fire? Your Majesty, according to Marquis Wu's investigation, the fire was caused by a candlestick in the woodshed falling to the ground. As for whether or not someone deliberately set the fire, the people of Marquis government have yet to come to a conclusion. The chamberlain bowed. Li Er frowned and did not say anything. After a while, he suddenly asked, There was a woman in the Japanese envoys. Was she still in the Japanese envoys after the fire? The chamberlain suddenly looked troubled. After thinking about it, he cupped his hands and said, Your Majesty, I don't know. He was just a messenger. How would he know if there was a woman in the Japanese envoys? Then why don't you send someone to investigate? Li Er's face darkened as he said coldly, Yes, Your Majesty. The chamberlain shuddered and quickly left the hall. Zhao Song guessed what Li Er was thinking. He wanted to help Li Zixuan explain, but he felt that it was inappropriate. After hesitating for a long time, he did not say anything in the end. Half an hour later, the chamberlain ran back and bowed to Li Er. Your Majesty, there is no woman in the Japanese envoys. That's enough. You can leave now. Li Er's face changed. He waved his hand and dismissed the chamberlain. Then, Li Er looked at Zhao Song and said, After tomorrow morning's court, tell Li Zixuan to come to Ganlu Hall to see me. After saying this, Li Er waved his sleeves and left. Yes, Your Majesty. Zhao Song cupped his hands and answered. He smiled bitterly in his heart. Marquis Yong, how can you be so muddle-headed in this matter? Sure enough, lust is accompanied by a knife. Yes, he and Li Er both thought that the fire in Honglu Temple tonight was set by Li Zixuan. His purpose was to secretly take the Japanese woman back. Oh, where is this? You? Don't come over. I recognize you. You are the guard of Marquis Yong. In the guest room of the Li Mansion in Yongla Lane, Pang Feiji changed out of his night clothes and came over to unseal Shimu's acupoints. Shimu immediately crossed her arms and moved her body into the bed. She looked at Pang Feiji with a vigilant face and said. Seeing this, Pang Feiji could not help but say, Miss Shimu, if I wanted to do something to you, I would have done it long ago. You would not be able to stop me. Since you know that I am Marquis' guard, then you should know that I will not harm you. Otherwise, you would not be here now. Sumi Summer I had just been violated by Yoko Ono a few minutes ago. Her previous reaction was only a natural reaction after a moment of panic. Now that she heard Pang Feiji's words, she understood the current situation. Therefore, she wasn't as agitated as before. She stood up from the bed and bowed to Pang Feiji. Thank you, General, for saving me. Shimu is extremely grateful. I wonder if it was Marquis who asked you to save Shimu? After coming to the Tang Empire, she had heard of Li Zixuan's deeds. If she were to use 4 words to describe Li Zixuan, it could only be young and promising. If she were to use 8 words to describe him, it would be young and promising, high position and power. She knew that if she wanted to change her fate, she could only find a backer that her brother could not afford to offend. And the person she was sent to this time, Li Zixuan, was a very good backer. For this, she even planned to use the charm techniques she learned from Neon to charm Li Zixuan. But when she first met Li Zixuan directly and mercilessly rejected her. She did not use any of the charm techniques she prepared. Now that Pang Feiji had saved her, a glimmer of hope ignited in Shimu's heart. I already told you just now that Marquis did not send me to save you. I just could not bear to see you go back to Neon to be humiliated, so I saved you. Marquis's heart is with the country. No matter what, he will not marry a foreign woman. Pang Feiji said expressionlessly. Su My Xiaomu's face turned pale. She bit her lips as tears unconsciously flowed from her eyes. She muttered, Since the Marquis of Yong and is not willing to take me in, then why did you save me? Even if I came out, I would be caught by them sooner or later. Boo-hoo. It was the first time Pang Feiji saw a girl cry, and such a beautiful girl at that. When Shimu cried, the arrogance on Brother Chicken's face disappeared. Instead, it was replaced with an uneasy and flustered expression. He said anxiously, Miss Shimu, although my Marquis is not willing to take you in, it does not mean that you will be caught by those people. You still have other options. Other options? What options do I have? Shimu raised her head and asked. There was a trace of crying in her voice, and her tear-stained face was really pitiful. Pang Feiji hurriedly shifted his gaze away and said, Now, you have two choices. The first is that I will take you out of the city after daybreak, and you will go to another place and find another way to survive. The second choice is to follow me, Pang Feiji, back home and live a good life. From today onwards, you are my woman and also a citizen of the Great Tang. Those people will not dare to touch you again. Ah? You. Shimu's eyes widened. She never thought that Pang Feiji would want to marry her. She was just about to refuse, but then she remembered that she had no skills. Even if she went to a place where the Neon delegation could not find her, what would she do to make a living? Moreover, she was a beautiful and helpless woman. It was inevitable that she would meet a beast like Yoko Ono in a strange place. Therefore, the first option was definitely not feasible. However, when she thought of the second option, Pang Feiji stood up at the critical moment and saved her from the clutches of the devil. Her heart wavered a little. But I will become a criminal wanted by the Neon. With your status, I will only bring you trouble. You can't protect me. After hesitating for a long time, Shimu said. After all, in her eyes, Pang Feiji was just a guard. Hey, Miss Shimu, don't underestimate me. As long as you become my woman, I, Pang Feiji, swear to God that I will never be bullied like today. If your Japanese envoys want to capture you, they'll have to ask for my permission first. Moreover, I have not married yet. If you become my woman, I promise to treat you well for the rest of your life. Pang Feiji patted his chest and promised. Shimu looked at Pang Feiji's face, which was not handsome but full of determination. After a long time, she said softly, Okay. Shimu is willing to serve you for the rest of my life. Chapter 1356. 2 in 1 chapter. Your Highness, we can now confirm that all the guards in the courtyard were knocked out by the sleeping gas. Because of this, they didn't notice Princess Mingda's disappearance. But when Princess Mingda was sent back, she didn't have anything on her, let alone sleeping gas. So, I guess that someone must have used the sleeping gas to steal Princess Mingda. But that group of people was very efficient and didn't leave any traces that could prove their identity. Your Highness, should we report this to the Tang Imperial Court and ask them to help us find Princess Mingda? Honglu Temple, Wei Country Embassy. The mountain-back Big Brother had just returned from the interrogation of the Honglu Temple when his guard came to report. No. The mountain-back Big Brother immediately shook his head and said, We can't let the Tang Imperial Court know about the existence of Su Wasiamu. Otherwise, they will definitely find out that we sent a woman to Duke Yong, and by then we might be driven back to Wei Country. We don't have to look for Su Wasiamu. Let's just pretend that she's dead. As for this fire, let's just pretend that Yoko Ono set it herself. He wasn't stupid. Once the matter of bribing an important official of Tang was exposed, they wouldn't be able to get away with it. If the bribe was successful, it would be better because Li Zixuan would help them cover it up. But now that the bribe wasn't successful, Li Zixuan had a clear conscience. It was already good enough that he didn't take the initiative to report them. How could he help them cover up their crime? So if he still wanted to stay in Tang Empire safely, he could only swallow this loss in silence. As for Su Xiaomu who ran away, it didn't matter to him. She was just a woman. Wei country never lacked women. Of course, he also suspected that Li Zixuan sent someone to steal Su Xiaomu. But that was only a suspicion. He didn't have any proof. Moreover, this was Tang Empire, not Wei country. He didn't have any authority to investigate Li Zixuan. Yes, Your Highness. Although the guard didn't know what the mountain-back big brother was thinking, he still obeyed the order. Early the next morning, at the first glimmer of dawn, a carriage drove out of the Marquis mansion in Yongla City and headed straight for the Yanqing Gate. When they arrived at the city gates, the gates had just opened. Pang Feiji rode his horse in front to clear the way. Because the carriage had the symbol of the Marquis mansion, and because the guards at the city gates all recognized Pang Feiji, they didn't check or question him, and directly let him pass. In fact, even if the city guards checked the carriage, they would not find anything. This was because the person in the carriage had already changed into the attire of a Tang woman. There was nothing unusual about her. When the time came, Pang Feiji could just make up an identity for her and she could get away with it. After leaving Chang'an City, Pang Feiji deliberately increased his speed. He brought Suimo Xiaomu and his subordinates and rushed towards Cloud Mountain. Huff! Stop! When they were about to reach the Han Manor, Pang Feiji saw two familiar faces in front of him. He quickly reined in his horse and gestured for the people behind him to stop. Then, he jumped off the carriage and walked towards the two people. Brother Lu Feng, Brother Lu Yun, does Marquis have something to tell me? That's right, the two people were Lu Feng and Lu Yun. Although their appearance made Pang Feiji feel that he had fallen out of favor, Pang Feiji definitely did not have the intention to hate them. After all, they were all working under Li Zixuan. There was no need to treat them like enemies all the time. Moreover, Li Zixuan had already been very lenient towards him regarding Suimo Xiaomu. Pang Feiji felt that he owed Li Zixuan a lot. He did not have the face to fight for favor with Lu Feng and Lu Yun. He only wanted to repay Li Zixuan's kindness with all his might in his remaining years. Brother Pang, Marquis said that you can't bring Suimo Xiaomu to Cloud Mountain. He has prepared a house for you in the Han Manor. You can send Suimo Xiaomu over there. You will live there in the future. However, try not to let her go out for now. It won't be too late for you to get married after the rumors die down. Lu Feng said with a fist salute. Hearing this, Pang Feiji looked towards the direction of Cloud Mountain with a face full of gratitude. He then saluted Lu Feng and said, "Thank you Brother Lu for coming to pass on the message. Feiji will send Xiaomu to the Han Manor now." "Haha. You're welcome. Brother Pang, follow us." Lu Feng laughed heartily and took the initiative to lead the way in front. At this moment, Lu Yun could not help but sigh. "Brother Pang, we are all servants. As a servant, if the master wants you to go east, you can't go west. If the master wants you to catch a dog, you can't catch a chicken. When the master wants you to die for him, you can't hesitate at all. However, this is the first time in my life that I, Lu Yun, have seen a master who is willing to take the risk for the sake of a servant. Such a master, not to mention that I have never seen one before, I have never even heard of one before. Therefore, both of us are very envious of you. We are envious that you can meet such a good master so early. Haha. However, you don't have to be envious. Now that we are all working under Marquis, I wonder if His Majesty will transfer us away again in a few days." Lu Yun's sigh seemed to be a little unreasonable and inexplicable. However, as the person involved, Pang Feiji was deeply moved. He was silent for a moment and said with a determined face, "Marquis is indeed an extraordinary person. In the future, my life will belong to Marquis. In this life, as long as I, Pang Feiji, am still breathing, I will not allow anyone to harm Marquis. Haha. Brother Pang is so bold. However, when Brother Pang gets married, the two of us will have to attend the wedding banquet. Lu Feng laughed and said. Pang Feiji shook his head and said, Right now, I am not in the mood for a happy occasion. Although I have taken away the Wei Nation's princess this time, I have also caused a lot of trouble for Marquis. This is all because of me. I will take responsibility for what I have done. If I am found out and get blamed by His Majesty, I will definitely not let this matter involve Marquis. At worst, I will go to the Supreme Court and admit my guilt. Marquis. After Pang Feiji settled Su Wu and Xiamu down, he came to the Yunshan villa. Li Zixuan had just finished practicing his swordsmanship. Pang Feiji knelt behind Li Zixuan and cupped his fist. Li Zixuan took the handkerchief from Xiao He and wiped the sweat on his forehead. Then, he said lightly, Get up. A man has gold under his knees. If you are really grateful to me, then do your job well in the future. Pang Feiji was silent for a moment. He stood up and said solemnly, From now on, Marquis is my second parent. If Marquis orders me, even if I have to give my life, I will do my best to complete it. Pang Feiji was born in the right Marquis household. It could be said that in the past, Li Zixuan was the most important person in his heart. However, after this incident, Li Zixuan's position in his heart had directly surpassed Li Er's. Now, if Li Zixuan were to raise the flag of rebellion, Pang Feiji would definitely follow him without hesitation. Yes. Li Zixuan nodded. This time, in order to help Pang Feiji and Su Xiamu, he would definitely bear a certain amount of risk. If it were other superiors, they would definitely not do this for their subordinates. However, Li Zixuan's soul was that of a modern person. The concept of superior and inferior was not deeply engraved in his bones. Pang Feiji had been with him for so long. He treated Pang Feiji as a friend, not a servant who could be ordered around by others. On the other hand, he did sympathize with Su Xiamu's situation. However, even if he sympathized because of his identity, he could not personally help her. Since Pang Feiji had taken a fancy to Su Xiamu, he might as well help them. He could use the former princess of the Wei nation to be his subordinate's wife. This was also something that would give him face, wasn't it? Have you settled everything on your side? Reporting to the Marquis, everything has been settled. Pang Feiji quickly replied. Li Zixuan asked again, Do you have any relatives at home? Speaking of which, as a superior, he was not considered competent. He did not even know the basic family situation of his employee. Pang Feiji replied, Marquis, I still have an old mother at home. She lives in Yongyang Lane. I plan to take some time to bring her to the Han family manor. In the future, she will settle down in the Han family manor. Yes. That's not bad. Li Zixuan nodded. Just as he was about to say something, he heard Xiao He beside him remind him softly, Young master, head steward Zhao from the palace is here. Pang Feiji's expression changed. He turned around and saw Zhao Song and a group of people walking towards them from outside the courtyard. He suddenly had an ominous feeling in his heart. Marquis, if the Emperor finds out about what happened last night, I will take responsibility for what I did. I am willing to go to the Supreme Court to plead guilty. Pang Feiji hurriedly whispered to Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan did not panic. He smiled and said calmly, Don't be anxious. First of all, Big Brother Shanbei will definitely not report to the authorities because of Su Xiamu's disappearance. This is because his crime of secretly bribing the officials will be exposed. If the people do not report, the officials will not investigate. I guess the Emperor might have misunderstood that I was greedy for Miss Xiamu's beauty and sent people to kidnap her. That is why he asked Zhao Song to summon me to the palace. In fact, when Li Zixuan made the decision to let Pang Feiji go to Honglu Temple to steal Xiamu, Li Zixuan had already considered the possible consequences. Among them, the biggest possibility was that Big Brother Shanbei himself would suffer this loss. Su Wa Xiamu was just an abandoned pawn. Big Brother Shanbei would not give up the opportunity to continue hiding in the Tang Empire because of her. Marquis, if His Majesty really blames me for this, you must push this subordinate out. After all, this happened because of me. Even if Feiji dies, I cannot implicate Marquis. After a moment of silence, Pang Feiji bowed and said. Li Zixuan did not reply, because Zhao Song had already walked to the entrance of the courtyard. He smiled and went up to greet him, clasping his hands. Ha ha! Head Steward Zhao, what wind blew you here? Servants, quickly prepare some tea. Zhao Song hurriedly waved his hands. Oh my Marquis! Look at the situation now, and you still have the mood to drink tea. Quickly, come with me to the palace. The Emperor has summoned you to the palace. Li Zixuan's expression became serious, and he said crisply, All right. Please wait for a moment, Butler Zhao. Let me change my clothes, then I will follow you to the palace. After a while, Li Zixuan changed into his court attire, rode on Big White, and left Yun Mountain with Zhao Song. On the way, Zhao Song saw that there was no one around, so he deliberately slowed down the speed of his horse. He whispered to Li Zixuan, Marquis, let me say something that I shouldn't say. With your current status, what kind of girl can't you marry? Why do you have to marry a Japanese girl and make the Emperor unhappy? In my opinion, you should release the Japanese girl that you kidnapped last night as soon as possible. As the Emperor's trusted aide, the fact that Zhao Song could speak to this extent proved that he really did not treat Li Zixuan as an outsider. Li Zixuan heard the sincerity in Zhao Song's words, so he treated him with sincerity. Steward Zhao, since you've put it this way, then I won't hide it anymore. To be honest, yesterday afternoon, the big brother on the mountain back sent a Japanese girl. After I heard about it, I immediately sent the Japanese girl back. Since then, there has been no Japanese girl on Yun Mountain. And I, Li Zixuan, will not have anything to do with any foreign girl, whether it is in the past, present, or future, let alone marry a Japanese girl. Hearing Li Zixuan's solemn vow, Zhao Song did not doubt him and chose to believe him. He breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. With your words, Marquis, then I can rest assured. Ha ha! After a quarter of an hour, Li Zixuan arrived at the palace. At this time, Li Er had not finished the morning assembly, so he waited quietly alone in the Ganlu Hall. After waiting for about half an hour, there was finally a sound of footsteps outside the hall. Li Zixuan straightened his clothes. When Li Er came in, he quickly bowed and saluted. Your Majesty! Humph! You allowed your subordinates to set fire to the Honglu Temple and tried to marry a Japanese girl in private. Do you still have me, the Emperor, in your eyes? Li Er's cold and ruthless voice came from above. It was obvious that Li Er was very angry. Of course, he was angry because Li Zixuan wanted to marry a Neon woman, not because the post house where the Neon people lived had been burned down. He didn't care about the Neon people's lives at all. What he cared about was that after Li Zixuan married a Neon woman, he might leak his magical engineering knowledge to the Neon people. Through the conversation with Zhao Song on the way here, Li Zixuan had already understood Li Er's anger in advance. At this moment, he did not beat around the bush and directly explained. Your Majesty, why do you say that? Japan is an inferior country. As a subject of the Tang Empire, how can I marry a girl from an inferior country? Not only now, but also in the future. I dare to point to the heavens and swear. Hearing this, Li Er's expression became slightly better. In the eyes of the Tang Empire, Japan was indeed an inferior country. Not only did the Tang Empire think so, but even the Japanese themselves thought so. Therefore, the Japanese often borrowed seeds from the Tang Empire's merchants who passed by on the sea. Then the arson and kidnapping incident last night at the Honglu Temple really had nothing to do with you? Although Li Er felt a little in his heart, he was still somewhat puzzled. He did not believe that last night's incident had nothing to do with Li Zixuan. Your Majesty, of course this incident had something to do with me. Li Zixuan's words almost made old Li go berserk. Then he heard Li Zixuan continue, "Don't worry. The big brother king of the mountain back is coveting the knowledge of the Yanhuang Academy. I have long noticed this. This time, this bastard is even more outrageous. He wants to use his beauty to bribe me. If I don't teach him a lesson, won't he forget himself? So, after I sent someone to send the woman back yesterday, I asked someone to snatch her back. Then, I directly rewarded the Wanatian woman to a servant. The Wanatian's diplomatic mission suffered a double loss. It can be considered a lesson to them." Chapter 1357. In the Ganlu Palace. When Li Er saw Li Zixuan say these words so confidently, he was really angry. His face was as cold as frost as he said, "Humph! You burned down the Honglu post house, and you still dare to talk to me like this? Do you still have any respect for the law?" However, although he looked very angry, there was only anger in his words, not coldness. Li Zixuan had made it very clear that the kidnapping of the Neon Woman was just to teach the Neon delegation a lesson and to reward the woman to his subordinate. As long as Li Zixuan didn't marry the Neon Woman, it was enough. According to the previous plan, once Li Zixuan wanted to marry the Neon Woman, even if Li Er was reluctant, he would imprison Li Zixuan or kill him directly. After all, the engineering knowledge in Li Zixuan's head was too terrifying. Once it spread to other countries, it would bring immeasurable losses to the Tang Empire. As the supreme ruler of the Tang Empire, Li Er would never allow this to happen. There were some things that he couldn't have, and he couldn't let other countries have either. Now that the truth was out, Li Er naturally didn't have to worry about whether to kill Li Zixuan or not. Li Zixuan smiled bitterly and said, "Your Majesty, I only asked my subordinates to steal the woman, but I didn't ask them to set the house on fire. I think the fire was accidentally set by the Neon people, and it has nothing to do with me." Since Big Brother Shanbei did not report the disappearance of Shimu to the authorities, then he would definitely take responsibility for the fire at the post house. Therefore, Li Zixuan simply pushed the boat with the current and threw the blame to Big Brother Shanbei. When Li Er heard this, he was instantly speechless. During the morning court session, the current minister of the Honglu Temple reported to him the investigation of the burning of the Neon delegation's post house last night. The Neon people admitted that they had accidentally burned down the woodshed and were willing to pay for the loss of the post house. Of course, Li Er was skeptical about the Japanese's statement, so he just asked Li Zixuan to see if he could get a different answer from Li Zixuan. He didn't expect the result to be the same. Li Er said crossly, "Humph! Even if the fire was not set by your people, as a marquis, you actually sent people to sneak into the Honglu Temple to kidnap people. You are breaking the law knowingly. I see that you are getting bolder and bolder." Li Zixuan knew that he was in the wrong, and he also understood that Li Er was not really angry, so he said, "Your Majesty, I was indeed thoughtless this time. At that time, I only wanted to teach the Neon delegation a lesson, but I forgot my identity and acted a little extreme. Please punish me, Your Majesty." This was retreating in order to advance. Anyway, Old Li didn't care about the lives of the Neon people at all. Even if he admitted his mistake, he wouldn't be punished much. Li Er raised his eyebrows and asked, "Did you really give that Neon woman to a servant?" It turned out that Old Li was still worried. He was afraid that Li Zixuan would have something to do with the Neon people. Li Zixuan hurriedly promised, "Your Majesty, this is absolutely true. I plan to let that neon woman marry my subordinate as soon as this matter is over. And Your Majesty, you may not know that the neon woman has a special identity. She is the daughter of the Suo family, a top family in Neon. However, the Suo family was destroyed last year, and the Neon Crown Prince suppressed the old, weak women and children of the Suo family. Therefore, that neon woman was sent to the Tang Empire as a pawn to bribe officials. Now that woman has a deep hatred for the Neon Empress and the Neon Crown Prince. When the Tang Empire's army attacks Neon in the future, she can lead the way for us. Li Er nodded thoughtfully and then felt that something was wrong. He frowned and said, Neon is a barren land overseas. I have nothing to do. Why would I send troops to attack it? Finally, the topic was changed. Li Zishuan breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, Your Majesty, you are wrong. Neon is rich in copper and silver mines. If we can conquer Neon, the Tang Empire will not lack silver and copper in the future. Hearing this, Li Er couldn't help but be moved. He frowned and asked, How do you know that Neon is rich in copper and silver mines? Li Zishuan's face froze. After a moment, he hurriedly said, Your Majesty, my master went to Neon before he died and said that Neon was full of copper and silver. Last year, Commandery Prince Hejian also went to Neon, so he must know about this. On the other hand, Neon sent so much silver and copper to the Tang Empire last year and this year, which is enough to prove that the land is rich in silver and copper. Duping Li Er into becoming interested in Neon. After the Turks and Tufan were destroyed, the Tang Empire would be able to attack Neon. This way, Li Er wouldn't turn his attention to Goguryeo too early. To be honest, Goguryeo was a tough nut to crack. The four emperors of the Sui and Tang dynasties had all sent troops to attack Goguryeo, and countless Han Chinese soldiers had died in Goguryeo. Many historians believed that Li Shimon's 3 campaigns against Goguryeo was a big failure in his life. He had made the same mistake as Emperor Yang of the Sui dynasty. Therefore, using Neon as a training ground for Li Er was a very good choice. If the mountain-back big brother knew about Li Zishuan's sinister intentions, he would probably send out all the ninjas and assassins in Neon to kill Li Zishuan. Sure enough, old Li's expression changed. He pondered for a moment and said, But now, the Tang Empire has started to promote the use of paper Tang Yuan. The demand for copper is not as big as before. Li Zishuan hurriedly said, Your Majesty, copper is not only used for coins. There are many things that require copper in engineering. For example, the telegraph machine requires a lot of copper because copper conducts electricity better than iron. In the future, there will be more and more places that require copper. The corner of Li Er's mouth twitched. Only now did he know that Li Zishuan's telegraph machine required a lot of copper. It was really extravagant. This was mainly because in the eyes of the ancient people, copper basically meant money. However, for something like the telegraph machine, no matter how expensive it was, the more the better. Therefore, Li Er thought for a moment and said, Forget it. We will remember this matter for now. You brat, go back and reflect on yourself. The next time you do something like this, we will teach you a lesson. Li Zishuan knew that he had already planted a seed in Li Er's heart. He hurriedly cupped his hands and replied, Yes, Your Majesty. I will reflect on myself in the coming days. After a moment of silence, Li Er said, Since the Wa envoys are so restless and dare to blatantly bribe the courtiers, we will order all of them to go back in a few days. Li Zishuan hesitated and said, Your Majesty, now that the Wa woman has been taken away by my men, there is no evidence for the bribery. Wa is now a vassal state of the Tang Empire. Your Majesty previously agreed to let them stay in Chang'an City for half a year. If you change your mind this time, I think the courtiers will not agree. Li Er pondered for a moment and nodded. What you said is not without reason. In that case, let them stay for a few more days. However, you have to prevent the Wa people from going to Yanhuang College to steal the technology related to the telegraph machine, the fairy lamp, and the telescope. The Yanhuang College confidentiality regulations you formulated this time is very good. In the future, Yanhuang College will implement a comprehensive confidentiality management according to the regulations you listed in it. Through the previous rebellion, Li Er saw the role of the telegraph machine, the fairy lamp, and the telescope in war. At the same time, he also realized that these technologies should be kept strictly confidential. Otherwise, it would be the Tang Empire's turn to have a headache if other countries also had them. Li Zixuan was naturally very happy that Li Er could realize this. He cupped his hands and said, "Your Majesty, Your Majesty! Your Majesty, please rest assured that I will not let the small foreign countries covet the magical weapons of the Tang Empire." "Good. With your words I am relieved." Li Er nodded. Suddenly, he turned his gaze to Li Zixuan and asked, "I also heard that you have a 100 trump cards project in the college? What is the meaning of this? Come and tell me." It had to be said that Li Er was quite concerned about Yanhuang College. At this moment, he had probably forgotten that he had called Li Zixuan over to denounce him. "Your Majesty, this trump cards project is a project that I specially set up to encourage the students to create some magical weapons that will benefit the world." Hearing Li Er mention the trump cards project, Li Zixuan explained in detail the contents of the project that he had introduced to the students and teachers of the college. "Your Majesty intends to start the first trump cards project, which is the Ba River hydropower station. Currently, the Ba River Dam is only the first step. After the dam is completed, Your Majesty will use the dam as the foundation to build a hydropower station and usher in the era of electricity for the Tang Empire." At the end, Li Zixuan revealed his first trump cards project. Li Er had heard Li Zixuan talk about the Ba River Dam before, so he was not very surprised. However, he was very interested in the concept of the trump cards project that Li Zixuan proposed. After thinking for a moment, Li Er opened his mouth and said, "This 100 trump cards project can't only be funded by the college alone. The imperial court will also transfer a portion of money to support it every year. In addition, as long as the participants make outstanding contributions, I will not be stingy with money and official rewards." This basically raised the trump cards project to the level of a country. Li Zixuan was naturally very happy. He cupped his hands and said, "Your Majesty, I thank you in advance on behalf of those students for your reward." Li Er said happily, "Kid, you are getting more and more glib-tongued. When the college has really made some great achievements, it won't be too late for you to thank me." All right. Since you have asked what you wanted to ask, you can leave." "Yes, Your Majesty, I will leave." Li Zixuan cupped his hands in acknowledgement and slowly left the Sweet Dew Hall. After leaving the palace, he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief and said, "Phew! This can be considered a blessing in disguise, right?" He had been angrily called into the palace by Li Er, but not only had he not been punished, but the trump cards project had also received old Li's full support. Wasn't this a blessing in disguise? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.